2018. It is the second day that the Senate is having county assembly chambers. It is a historic sitting which the Senate has embarked upon. This afternoon, the senators will be engaging in a number of businesses. Among them, a number of statements which will be issued. And the Senator for Garissa County, Senator Yusuf Haji, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education on the award of scholarships by the Ministry of Education to Kenyan students studying outside the country in undergraduate and postgraduate levels. The Senator for Isiolo County, Senator Fatuma Dulo, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding the implication of the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia transport corridor in Isiolo County and its residents. Nominated Senator, Senator Mary Seneta, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the management of the Kenya Meat Commission. And finally, a nominated Senator, Mary Seneta, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the recurring invasion by armyworm in the grain-growing regions of Kenya, namely Trans Nzoia, Nandi, Bomet, Kitale, and Central Kenya areas. There will be the resumption of debate, which was interrupted on Tuesday, 25th September, on the Petroleum Bill, National Assembly Bills number 48 of 2017. That particular bill is going through the second reading. And then after that, there will be the petition to County Assembly's Procedure Bill, Senate Bills number 22 of 2018. It will be debated for the second reading. That particular bill has been authored by Senator Judith Pareno. The Public-Private Partnerships Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 52 of 2017, is also in the order of business this afternoon, and it is scheduled for second reading, as well as other bills such as the County Planning Roads, Pavements and Parking Bays Bill, Senate Bills number 18 of 2018, the Local Content Bill, Senate Bills number 10 of 2018, the Impeachment Procedure Bill, Senate Bills number 15 of 2018. If you're just joining us, these are live pictures from the UASIN GISHU County Assembly, and on your screen you can see the Speaker of the Senate making yet another entrance into the chamber. This broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with KBC.
Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, Okay, Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Soti Marie Girls High School, Elgeyo Marakwet County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Our honorable senators, I would also like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers St. Josephine Bakita Kiborom School from UASIN GISHU County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator Murkomen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity to join you in welcoming the two schools, Mr. Speaker, from this county and my county. Maria Soti Girls School is one of the best schools in my county. Mr. Speaker, a very beautiful school. Just as you can see, their uniform is even beautiful. And top 4 performing schools in Elgeyo Marakwet. And you very well know, Mr. Speaker, insofar as the when ranking of schools was going on, Elgeyo Marakwet was always top 2, both in primary and secondary school. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank them for coming, and I want to congratulate the school administration for the great performance. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for inviting them to this house. And I hope the next senator of Elgeyo Marakwet, Mr. Speaker, is sitting there getting inspired so that we can hand over to that generation. So, Speaker, I thank you.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements.
Senator Yusuf Haji. Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Pursuant to Standing Order 48, I rise to seek statement from Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding the implication of the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia transport, which is LAPSET corridor for Isiolo County and its residents. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should, number 1, explain and disclose the proposed route of the LAPSET corridor, indicating the development plans and whether the proposed route traverses Isiolo County. Number 2, further explain the benefits that will accrue as the result of LAPSET corridor to Isiolo County and its residents, enumerating the steps that the government is taking to ensure that persons and communities in Isiolo County whose properties will be adversely affected by the LAPSET project will be compensated. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
What's your point of order, Senator Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ride on that statement because there's something fundamental that would benefit this House. I didn't hear the Senator for Isiolo ask for a statement on the budgetary allocation to this project. It will be very useful for this House, even as you consider the impact of LAPSET on Isiolo and its environs. If possible, the chair of the committee should also tell this House whether LAPSET has been given an adequate budget to achieve its objectives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Since I don't see any other rider, the statement is committed to the Committee on Roads and Transport. Senator Mary Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 48, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the recurring invasion by armyworms in the grain-growing regions of Kenya, namely Trans Nzoia, Nandi, Bomet, Kitale, and Central Kenya areas. In the statement, the committee should explain the interventions being rendered by the national government to the county governments in a bind to control and mitigate the invasion by the worms in Trans Nzoia, Nandi, Bomet, and other parts of the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the statement is committed. What's your point of order, Senator Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, the issue of fall armyworm is not only restricted to the regions that Senator has listed. And I wanted to urge, with her indulgence, that she expands this so that we have a national analysis of the implication of fall armyworm, because even in Homa Bay County, we find this armyworm, and it is affecting our harvest, it is affecting our crop. I sit in the Agriculture Committee, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that if we expand its scope to a national assessment, it will be possible for the Ministry of Agriculture to brief this House, because agriculture is devolved. It is our duty as a Senate to defend and protect the farmers of this republic, and it is high time that we got a solution to this problem that has caused so much poverty in Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Farhia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This, for giving me the opportunity to contribute. I also wanted the same way to write on this statement. Even in Wajir, there is also the same worms that are depleting the pasture for the animals. So even for those who are keeping animals, goats, sheep, and cows and camel, that they are also being affected. So I agree, it should be looked as a national issue, not only limited to those counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Okay, the statement is committed to the Ministry, to the Committee on Agriculture. Next statement, Mary Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will do the same by amending the statement. Pursuant to Starting Orders 48, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the management of Kenya Meat Commission, KMC. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the interventions being undertaken by the national government to facilitate the Kenya Meat Commission to pay for farmers their pending bills amounting to 490 billion 675 336 shillings. Number 2, states when the national government intends to release the money that was allocated for rehabilitation of Athi River Meat Factory and Kibarani, Mombasa in the last financial year, 2017-2018. 3, explain why the Kenya Meat Commission was not factored in the Strategic Food Reserve Fund. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's committed to Committee on Agriculture. What's your point of order, Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I'd like to ride on that statement if it's okay. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to also get more information, and I think the standing committee, which this statement would be committed to, needs to look at how county governments can be able to actually work, because a lot of farmers depend on these cows, and when they sell the cows and they don't get paid, it really kills their economy. So this is an issue of an economy which does not only deal with just the Maasais alone, it is the entire pastoralist, people who take these animals to the Kenya Meat Commission. There's really no reason as to why a state corporation should be going down just like that. So it is improper also in that statement for us to be given details about the management and how these people are managing those resources. Because that meat is not staying there, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is being sold. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important statement, as I also congratulate Senator Mary to bring this to the attention of this House. Mr. Speaker, we know that Kenya Meat Commission is there to serve the entire nation, and especially the pastoralist community. Many people, many Kenyans have supplied animals and other things, and they are really suffering. I know of someone who has supplied things to a tune of 200 million. And up to today, that person has not been paid. There are many Kenyans who are suffering in the hands of this commission, and it is my prayer, or it is coming to my committee of agriculture, so we will take proper action on what needs to be done and management, and I think a bit of corruption is also taking place in that place, so serious attention needs to be taken and given to the statement. Thank you.
Senator Pareno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to just make a comment on this statement, and I thank my sister for bringing this up. Mr. Speaker, if there is a major plant, or we can call it a processing plant in Kajiado, it's the Kenya Meat Commission. Mr. Speaker, the government some time back came and indicated that they were reviving this particular commission. To this moment, it doesn't look like it is being revived. It looks like it is actually on its deathbed. Mr. Speaker, we once were told that the Republic of Rwanda picked the blueprint of the Kenya Meat Commission. They are now a leading meat. They have a leading meat industry, having implemented that blueprint. Mr. Speaker, we have very good plans. Nothing is being implemented. If anything, Mr. Speaker, it is on its deathbed. Unless something is done, this is one very great institution that is going under. And it is important that this statement goes to the right committee, that we look into how it can be revived, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator GISHU.
Thank you, Speaker. For a moment, I thought there was not enough lighting on this side. But Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to join and just write on that statement on I'm a direct stakeholder in Kenya Meat Commission. And Mr. Speaker, it is a matter that just needs a detailed examination. Because if you look at the debt that has been talked about, the petitioner, the person seeking statement should even tell us how far back those debts are from. It's a perennial problem, it's a long-term problem, which means, Mr. Speaker, that the issue should not just be glossed over by it. I think the committee will be capable of getting to the bottom of this. And I really want us to see Kenya Meat Commission transformed into a strategic food reserve and strategic institution. Thank you.
Senator Ephraim Maina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I like to add it to this statement and actually say the issue of frustrating, especially pastoralists is actually an inhuman act. These are people who go through hardships, and it would be expected that a situation as we are being told should not arise. But Mr. Speaker, I want to point out that we have a bigger issue. The issue is not just the payment. We have a bigger issue. And let me mention, during the colonial days, KMC was actually a very successful operation. It was also taken over and it continued being successful. But Mr. Speaker, somewhere on the line, the rain started beating us. And this particular industry has never peaked. Years back, recently, money was put into this KMC. But it looks as like giving somebody money who has gone bankrupt. You pay his bank, then he goes back and borrows more money. And then he goes back to where he was. That is what is looking. Therefore, I would wish this committee to actually look in this matter in a holistic manner. There is a payment of farmers, which is in itself is inhuman as far as I'm concerned. These are people who are selling their cows at such a throwaway price. If you compare it with the Botswana, which is making a lot of foreign exchange out of actually doing open pasture, just like we do here. But somehow we can't organize ourselves, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want this committee to go deeper into the matter. First of all, the payment of farmers should not wait. If there's a road being built in Kajiado, it will never be stopped and the farmers are paid. This is inhuman because it should not continue and elsewhere in the whole republic. But besides that, we would want to hear something that comes as a solution. Because this country, let's look at it today. The people here in Western, their sugar is gone. We are here now. This is the grain store of Kenya from Kitale, not here, at all this region. Farmers are also so frustrated. I've seen old ladies nearly in tears who have not been paid, but we are importing maize to that ridicule. We move from here, come to Central, the coffee we are producing is only 15% what we were producing in the 1970s. Coffee used to be a main foreign exchange. There is nothing coming. Something needs to be looked in this country. This is an agricultural country. God gave us good soil. God gave us enough rain. God gave us climate, sunshine all the year round. You can grow any fruit here. You can grow vegetables 4 times a year. Therefore, this is a very important thing for the country. Unfortunately, where are the answers? And they were here. The expertise was here. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to make those remarks and say this issue is pointing to a very serious, deeper problem which we must solve if Kenya is going to start walking on the path of development. Thank you.
Senator Mwaura.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, apologies to my colleague, Senator Mwaura. It wasn't my intention to interrupt you. But I want to register a protest, Mr. Speaker. In the ruling, in the motion that brought back statements to this House after the break that we took because of this riding business that is happening this afternoon, it was very clear in your indication that we shall not be having this kind of atmosphere where after a question is brought, a statement is brought before the House, members make general comments, and before we know it, it is 4 o'clock. Therefore, I seek your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, that you guide this House appropriately, that we may abide by decisions that we made ourselves. Thank you.
I note that I've just given some convenience because this is our first sitting out here. I have used that latitude just for today as we going forward. Senator Mwaura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, standing order number 1 gives discretion to the Speaker based on traditions that he may allow people to speak. And Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this statement and say that indeed KMC is a great income earner if it was well to be managed, because 89% of this country is ESO. And that means a lot of people really depend on livestock. So it really is a disservice to see the kind of debts and lack of proper management of the institution with regard to the holding back of this facility. And I think, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Learamo, who is the current CEO, has the capacity really to transform this. But there is no CEO in this country or any management that can do that when there's a lot of debt and when there is no proper marketing plan. This country now is importing, meat, canned meat really, from other economies. And some of these economies are actually, they are very arid places, just because we have poor management. So I think this is very important that this matter be looked at by the Committee on Agriculture in the Senate, because the people of this republic have proven that they have more confidence in the Senate. Those people who are saying the Senate should be scrapped really need to know that this House has the capacity to interrogate this matter. In any case, it is the National Assembly that needs to be scrapped because they received 10,000 shillings in toilets. I mean, yesterday, they were doing investigations on how people are being bribed in the toilets, Mr. Speaker. And that is not the House. That is why we are here in Mashinani, to listen to the people. We do not receive money in other dungeons.
Remain relevant. You are now veering into...
Okay, Mr. Speaker.
You are discussing another House. You are out of order.
Mr. Speaker, this House is a dignified House. Its value is very high. And I believe that with that kind of expertise and focus, we will be able to deal with this petition. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Okay. The statement is committed to the Committee on Agriculture. Senator Garissa Yusuf Haji. Is he there? So I defer the statement. Next order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order?
I was about to suggest to you, Mr. Speaker, due to the core and the weight of this matter, to the country called Kenya, to the citizens of this country. And as I said, it's not just about what you call age lunching. By the way, I know myself I'm a savala because I have to sell cows to some butchers at poultry prices.
What's your point of order?
Now, Mr. Speaker, I am beseeching you, I'm asking whether it is in order to suggest to you that maybe an ad hoc committee be selected from this House to look at this.
No. Ad hoc committees, we're trying to minimize ad hoc committees. I think the Committee on Agriculture has the capacity to deal with the matter. Next order. Pursuant to Standing Order number 40, I wish to rearrange the order paper. Instead of going to order number 8, we go to order number 17 for the convenience of the House.
Order number 17, motion, commending Eliud Kipchoge for breaking the world marathon record.
Senator Murkomen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion that cognizant that Eliud Kipchoge broke the world marathon record held by fellow Kenyan athlete Dennis Kimeto during the 2018 Berlin Marathon, held on Sunday, 16 September 2018, aware that Kenya has earned international respect in athletics over the years, courtesy of such hard work and stellar performance by our athletes in both on and off the field events, which has brought us together as a country and encouraged cohesion in line with our national anthem. Further aware that athletics has created significant economic opportunities and infrastructure in the Rift Valley, creating thousands of jobs for many would-be jobless youth, thus engaging them in a productive and meaningful manner for purpose of nation building. Further aware that the youth are a critical component of the Big Four agenda by the government, and that development of athletics will lead to more productivity by a significant population of the youth who constitute a formidable part of the demographic structures of the country, cognizant that more support from the government is needed to fight the doping menace that has bedeviled our athletes and to encourage and motivate youth and becoming athletes to strive for excellence untainted by the vice. Noting that performance by our sportsmen and women are indeed commendable and deserve special recognition, the Senate now commends Mr. Eliud Kipchoge for his excellent performance in the marathon and specifically for breaking the world marathon record, and urges the national government to set aside additional funds to improve sports facilities, establish a conducive environment in the country by giving incentives to investors in sports sector, provide social, including psychosocial support to active and former athletes, including pension scheme, create a fund to cushion athletes who are forced to early retirement due to illness, injury, or other circumstance. The Speaker, this is a very important subject, particularly because we are in this region. Athletics, Mr. Speaker, is the backbone of this region, and particularly the three counties where you will know, Mr. Speaker, today we were in Elgeyo-Marakwet County in the company of the minority leader, Senator Orengo, Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Fatuma Dulo, and the Commissioner, Senator Aaron Cheriot. Mr. Speaker, you will know that Iten is nothing without athletics. And Elgeyo-Marakwet is known more because of athletics. And if you think about even when these three counties were trying to brand themselves, you saw they were fighting over championship. That's why Elgeyo-Marakwet is called the home of champions. And then UASIN GISHU is called the city of champions. And you go to Nandi County, they call themselves the source of champions. The idea around there was no better branding, you know. Basically, I can say this is the region of champions because, Mr. Speaker, sports is a very important thing. I remember when I was in my studies over 12 years ago in the US, Mr. Speaker, somebody told me, do you know Paul Tergat? I said, yes. Have you ever even met Paul Tergat? I said, yes, I've even greeted him. The Speaker, he greeted me again and said, I will not wash my hand today. And the time I greeted Paul Tergat was a long time ago. We take our athletes for granted, Mr. Speaker. We take world records for granted. There are countries, big countries in the world, that never get even to get, when they get a bronze medal, they actually organize national celebration in the country. We take for granted our athletics because, you know, Mr. Speaker, we are getting that which we do not invest as a government or as a country. The budget that we put in sports and sports facilities, the budget which we put in athletics, Mr. Speaker, does not reflect the recognition that we get from the sports fraternity. Today, we are using Eliud Kipchoge as an example. The day Eliud Kipchoge broke the world record in Berlin Marathon, Mr. Speaker, it was such a, you know, a uniting day. It was on a Sunday. Many people even forfeited church service just to watch him, Mr. Speaker, run. And it was beautiful. But you know, these men are just humble people. Yesterday, 2 days ago, we were with him in Nandi during a function organized by the governor of Nandi, Governor Sang, for his recognition, including other issues. The Speaker, and you see a humble person, he was asked to talk. He talked for 3 minutes and he sat down. The Speaker, these people have made our country great. The Speaker, Kenya is a home to 5 world records. The Speaker, the best world record we have held for a long time is held by a Kenyan from Elgeyo-Marakwet County called, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Komen. Mr. Komen, Mr. Speaker, broke the 3,000 meters world record in 1996. It's yet to be broken, Mr. Speaker. Now this is about almost 22 years, Mr. Speaker. That record is still standing. Mr. Speaker, David Rudisha in the Olympics, Beijing Olympics, broke the world record in 800 meters, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, it was actually London. I stand corrected. Thank you. Because it's not on record, I want to thank Senator Wetangula because actually most likely he was there. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that he broke the world record. Now Kipchoge has broken the world record. There are other records, Mr. Speaker, that may not be for 25 meters Mark went running for marathon, 30 meters mark. Mr. Speaker, sports has made this country great. St. Patrick's High School, where I schooled, Mr. Speaker, my classmates and my schoolmates were athletes. My desk mate, Mr. Speaker, William Chirchir, actually beat El Gouraj in 800 meters, a youth championship. Mr. Speaker, I think that time in Paris, when we were in school together, when we were sitting together in the same school. The same time, Mr. Speaker, Jafet Kimutai won the world championship, Mr. Speaker, in 800 meters. And so many, Mr. Speaker, for the history of this country cannot be written without referring to great world champions, people like, Mr. Speaker, Kipchoge Keino, people like Paul Ereng, Mr. Speaker, people like Moses Tanui, Mr. Speaker, who ran the Boston Marathon and won the Boston Marathon, an investor, businessman in this town. Moses Kiptanui, Mr. Speaker, the winner of 3,000 meters championship steeplechase, Mr. Speaker, who now coach Ezekiel Kemboy, Mr. Speaker, both of whom are investors in this city, Mr. Speaker. We have so many athletes, Bremen Kibruto, Mr. Speaker. We have also in the ladies sector, Mr. Speaker, we have Mary Keitan, a winner of multiple world marathons, Mr. Speaker. We have Gladys Cherono, Mr. Speaker, who recently won not just the Berlin Marathon, Mr. Speaker, but for many other also marathons in cities across Europe, Mr. Speaker. We have, Mr. Speaker, Vivian Cheruyot, the lady who won both 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters in World Championship, Mr. Speaker. We have, Mr. Speaker, Catherine Dereba, Mr. Speaker, who for a long time was also a winner in World Marathon. We have Tekla Lorube, Mr. Speaker. We have, Mr. Speaker, many women, trailblazers, people who've conquered the world, including, Mr. Speaker, Lorna Kiplagat, Mr. Speaker, who was a world record holder for half marathon for a long period of time, and who is an investor in Elgeyo Marakwet County in Iten, Mr. Speaker, who have built a very beautiful stadium, Mr. Speaker, which really, as I question myself, why we cannot invest in our facilities, yet these people have done a great job. Mr. Speaker, I cannot really, you cannot mention the number of winners of world records. Mr. Speaker, Conselciat Kibruto now is our star after Ezekiel Kemboy. We have so many of them. If you want to talk about marathons, I can't even, my neighbor at home, Mr. Speaker, Evans Ruto, Mr. Speaker, who won the London Marathon in 2004 and had the record for London Marathon for a long period of time. So many of these athletes, Joseph Chebet, I know them personally, Mr. Speaker. It's so nostalgic for me because I represent them, Mr. Speaker, and I know their concerns and interests. Mr. Speaker, Aspel Kibrop, Mr. Speaker, who has shown for this country for a long period of time. The problem in this nation is that we reap where we have not sown, Mr. Speaker. The athletes are working so hard on their own. Mr. Speaker, they are competing in very deplorable conditions. They are training in deplorable conditions. Cameron Stadium, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the national government because now that stadium is under renovation. Mr. Speaker, a stadium that was there in colonial times has taken so many years for it to be constructed. Mr. Speaker, even the pace of construction now is slow. And I'm urging the Sports Stadium Management Authority to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, they expedite that process because we cannot have our athletes training in the conditions they are doing, and we ourselves are here celebrating, Mr. Speaker, the glory. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about marketing Kenya, who is a better marketer for this republic than these athletes, Mr. Speaker? When I saw the president was in New York launching the, Mr. Speaker, the direct flights from Nairobi to New York, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected he would have gone with a few New York Marathon winners because they are more recognized in New York than all of us who are sitting here combined, Mr. Speaker. And those are the people who must be used by this country. I was saddened the other day. Mr. Speaker, we are only talking today about athletics, but there is more we can say about sports in this country. We can talk a lot about football, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, football, where my greater interest is, despite the fact that I've grown with athletes, Mr. Speaker, is also one area that we are not investing enough. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the Wanyamas of this world, and Mr. Speaker, you talk about Mariga and his brother, Mr. Speaker, Victor, if you talk about the Oliech, Mr. Speaker, of this world, if you talk about Michael Koth, whose son now is playing for Liverpool, Mr. Speaker, and as a player for Belgium, Mr. Speaker, we are the kind of people that, Mr. Speaker, if we really invested in sports, properly in sports, I actually feel like if we wanted to change this country, Mr. Speaker, the place we can change this country more, we can unite this country more, When we watch sports in this nation, Mr. Speaker, we never think about the tribe of the athlete or the tribe of the football player, Mr. Speaker, or the tribe, Mr. Speaker, of the rugby player. If you look at Humphrey Kayange and the brother, Mr. Speaker, Collins Injera, if you look at all those rugby players who have made this country great, Mr. Speaker, in fact, it was so discouraging to see the other day that the brand Kenya was, playing around with them in terms of their sponsorship, Mr. Speaker, when they were going for rugby sevens, Mr. Speaker. It shows that it is time we need to wake up. And this Senate needs to push, Mr. Speaker, for the things that we have enumerated here, to start with, Mr. Speaker, to have proper facilities. Mr. Speaker, we need to have proper facilities that when we demand from our sportsmen that, Mr. Speaker, we want to see success in the sports sector, we must have invested in the sports facilities. And Mr. Speaker, sports facilities, it doesn't have to be constructed by government. Stadia now all over the world are privately owned. You just need to create, Mr. Speaker, the conducive environment for private investors to come, Mr. Speaker, and invest in building stadia and give them the incentives to be able to grow young footballers, young athletes, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that their interests are covered as investors, but at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we get the best interest for our country. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we need, Mr. Speaker, to provide support to these athletes. It is a shame, Mr. Speaker. It's a shame when people are laughing at many former athletes and some athletes who are still athletes even up to now in this region. Sometimes you're just laughing at them and saying, oh, you see so-and-so is drunk, so-and-so is now broke. He used to be rich. The other day he won 100 million in this sport. Mr. Speaker, we are laughing at the same people who have brought pride in this country. I was saddened recently, Mr. Speaker, when the whole nation, instead of looking for support for people like Eliud Kipchoge, Mr. Speaker, when he had a personal challenge, Mr. Speaker, we turned around to become, Mr. Speaker, Judas Iscariot, to betray the same people that we have always said they brought honor and glory to our country. Mr. Speaker, where did we go wrong? Why don't we give these people social support? Why don't we reach out to them? Do you know how a player or an athlete feels, Mr. Speaker, when they have an injury? When, Mr. Speaker, they are told they might have to terminate, Mr. Speaker, their sports training and competition because of injuries. Mr. Speaker, what support do we give as a country? Do we even reach out to them? Except mocking them, except insulting them in Twitter and social media, Facebook. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we must start to become our brother's keeper. We must get concerned about the welfare of the people that bring us the greatest glory, Mr. Speaker, so that we do not just wait until they have personal challenges and then we laugh at them. Mr. Speaker, we must also provide for them a plan. Most of the athletes whom I have interacted with, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, because of the orientation or the challenges related to financial challenges they had in their families, Mr. Speaker, some of them don't even finish Form 4. And even those who complete Form 4, Mr. Speaker, may not have any other higher education. I see some people laughing at athletes because they cannot pronounce well English or Swahili words. Mr. Speaker, you are laughing at our athletes, but you are not laughing at Germans when they are struggling, Mr. Speaker, to pronounce English. We are not laughing at Polish, Mr. Speaker, when they are struggling to pronounce French. Mr. Speaker, we must not get ashamed. In fact, I've always said our athletes all over the world, wherever they are, when they are called to have an interview, they should speak in Kiswahili. If the best language they are going to speak is Kiswahili, it is the business of the organizers of the tournament to make sure that there's a person who's going to translate. Because when Russians, Mr. Speaker, speak in competition, they speak in their language. It's up to the business of those who are translating to, Mr. Speaker, translate to a language that is understood by other people in the world. I don't want our athletes to feel, enslaved in having to continue communicating. If they have to speak Kalenjin, let them speak Kalenjin, Mr. Speaker. If they have to speak Kikuyu, speak Kikuyu. If it is Luo, speak Luo. Let the organizers of the race prepare themselves with the translators. In any case, that is a language that is recognizable, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't make it look like it is only by speaking a particular language that you become educated. Education is more than, Mr. Speaker, going to school. And that's why I think where they need that education, it is the duty of the state to prepare a conducive environment where those people will be exposed to that education, that they can still pursue that education if they need, so that they use it after, Mr. Speaker, they retire from the athletics. They can be better managers of their, Mr. Speaker, lives and their issues and their resources, Mr. Speaker, if we give them training. Some of these athletes, Mr. Speaker, you go to a race like Eliud Kipchoge did, but let's not even use Eliud Kipchoge because he's an established and experienced athlete. Some of the athletes go for the first competition, maybe a Grand Prix, and they win. And they win a lot of money. Do you remember a lady, Mr. Speaker, called Pamela Jelimo? She won the jackpot, the Diamond League jackpot. That, Mr. Speaker, the moment she won, there was some issues came about her family affairs, her personal issues, and so forth. Kenyans just continue to discuss those issues. Nobody even asking themselves, this was a young girl. She was barely 23 or 24 years old. Nobody went about to find out how best she can be helped. Maybe she doesn't even have the skills to invest to over 100 million shillings. Mr. Speaker, it should be the duty of the Athletics Kenya and, Mr. Speaker, the government Ministry of Sports to always reach out for that kind of support to those athletes, to give them at least a few skills, Mr. Speaker, about investment. Mr. Speaker, these also at least must be protected from the exploitative acts, Mr. Speaker, of sports agents. Because some of these sports agents, by virtue of the fact that these athletes may not have the ability to read their contract, Mr. Speaker, or, Mr. Speaker, to analyze and negotiate the contract, Mr. Speaker. Again, Athletics Kenya and Ministry of Sports must create a department where sports contracts can be negotiated on behalf, Mr. Speaker, of these athletes, and they are protected from the exploitation of private investors, so that their contracts doesn't lead to a situation where someone wins, you work so hard. Let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, I have stayed with these people. They don't have sleep. Someone wakes up about 5 in the morning to run around Iten, a very cold town, Mr. Speaker. You run around with mist, prepare yourself, train, deny yourself. No wonder Paul, the apostle, used athletes, Mr. Speaker, that if you want even to go to heaven, you must prepare yourself and deny yourself many things like athletes. They deny themselves so many things and prepare themselves so hard, only for them to go and earn maybe 10 million shillings and come home with 1 million or 2 million. The exploiters, Mr. Speaker, the agents, the middlemen, the taxmen, Mr. Speaker, in between them and their resources, make sure that they become richer than the athletes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must also interrogate the tax regime, because some of our athletes are taxed where they run, in the country where they run, and taxed when they come home. Mr. Speaker, again, a more specific policy must be put in place to ensure that our investors, because these athletes are also our investors, are given that opportunity to bring those resources that they are and invest in their country. We would rather tax the proceeds, Mr. Speaker, of...
Mr. Speaker, point of information.
I'm willing to be informed.
What is your point of information?
When any Kenyan is taxed in another country, whatever tax that they pay in this country is deducted the tax that they paid in the other country. So I just wanted to inform the majority leader of the same. Thank you. And that is the Taxation Act.
I totally agree with the Senator. She's right, Mr. Speaker. But the complaints that come from the athletes is that that act is not followed to the latter. That there are situations where they are taxed twice. Mr. Speaker, I was handling a case another time of Lorna Kiblagat. She was bringing donated equipment that they bought that they wanted to invest in the sports stadium that they have now built in Iten. Mr. Speaker, it took many, many months for them even to be given tax breaks for that kind of investment. Some of them are also complaining that they get still taxed even after they... Because, you know, tax is a complex area of practice. Senator Orengo will tell you, the minority leader, that even tax practitioners as lawyers are specialized in matters of tax because they are complex area of practice, both for the tax people and those who are involved in tax law. And Mr. Speaker, without the support of the athletes, even the claims that you have to come and claim, even the declaration forms that you have to declare in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, some of them feel that they're extremely tedious and they end up just facing, Mr. Speaker, double taxation instead of them benefiting from the resources that they have earned, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we must create, not finally, the second last thing is the pension scheme. Mr. Speaker, we must think through how persons who are not formally employed in government and earning the amount of money athletes and sports people earn, Mr. Speaker, are going to be assisted to have a pension that they can be able to earn something for the rest of their lives. We should not be rigid to legal regimes that are already in place. We shouldn't just become traditional in the manner in which, Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with investments, Mr. Speaker, related to pension. We can create a product, Mr. Speaker, as a country that is targeted on our sports people because their span, their time span in terms of what we call their active period, Mr. Speaker, is so short. It's about at most 10 years. And those who are, yes, it's not shelf life. I don't want to use the word shelf life, Mr. Speaker, because they have more issues to contribute. I just went active period they have in terms of athletes is at most when you are 40. In fact, Eliud Kipchoge was being celebrated all over the world that is on top of the world at the age that no one expected that he will break the world record. I remember New York Times says that Kipchoge is on top of the world. Washington Post, The Telegraph, all those newspapers, international newspapers, Mr. Speaker, were hailing him. And I think we need to think through that how can we ensure that we create a special pension product, Mr. Speaker, that all those athletes who will have won world records, who will have won all these championships, Mr. Speaker, all the Grand Prix, can be assisted to invest in that pension scheme. And later in life, they will have the opportunity now to earn from the investments that they are put there. Mr. Speaker, I know this is a very popular motion. I don't want to speak much to allow others to be able also to make their contributions, Mr. Speaker. I just want to conclude by saying the athletes that are forced to retirement due to illness, injury, or any other circumstance, Mr. Speaker, again, they need to be considered as a special section of society, Mr. Speaker. And I want to tell my friends who are out there who are former athletes and current athletes, Mr. Speaker, it is important we come together. Mr. Speaker, it is time, and one athlete told me this, it is time we formalize the trade union of the athletes themselves. Because we have realized also as a nation, all these sports associations are cartels, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately. They are cartels from international level to local level, Mr. Speaker. And there are serious cartel systems. If you want to change, for example, the football sector, Mr. Speaker, in fact, I think this is a more serious cartel than the maize sector. Mr. Speaker, the cartels maize sector, we can easily find out from the cereals who submitted what amount of maize and who was paid. But the ones for sports, you know, they have an arrangement from Geneva to Nairobi. And Mr. Speaker, we must empower, provide, our constitution provides for the rights, Mr. Speaker, of labor rights, Mr. Speaker, including these athletes and sports people. Why can't we create conducive environment for these sports? Why can we, Mr. Speaker, create conducive, what was I saying? Why don't we create, Mr. Speaker, conducive environment and legal framework that will enable the athletes to form their trade unions and raise their issues, and those issues be taken seriously. Mr. Speaker, although we are members of international associations and as I said, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing that stops us under our law to ensure that we customize our law to fit the issues we are going to raise so that we can be able to take care of the sports, the football, the athletics, Mr. Speaker, and all these other sectors that are very important. Again, Mr. Speaker, I conclude by congratulating Mr. Eliud Kipchoge, a gentleman par excellence, Mr. Speaker, for what he did for breaking the world record and joining Daniel Komen, joining Daniel Komen and Rudisha, among others, trailblazers who have held world records, Mr. Speaker, in different fields and made a difference in this great republic. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the Senate Minority Leader to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very brief, and I wish to second this motion, this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, earlier I accompanied the majority leader to Elgeyo Marakwet, and we had a conversation with the governor who told me while we are in his office that one of the greatest sources of investment now in that county is coming from athletes. And they are thinking of ways and means of trying to encourage them to invest more into the county. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I'm a great follower of sports generally, from tennis to athletics to football to Formula One, name them all. Sometimes I don't leave the house when there's a major event, including American football and many other sports, cricket, rugby. I enjoy watching sports a lot. And Mr. Speaker, the other day when a lady by the name Osaka from Japan beat Serena Williams in the US Open in New York, you could see the joy in Japan. In fact, it was like there was a national holiday. The Prime Minister sent congratulations, and they had to prepare to meet her when she goes back to Japan. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this because, when we won this marathon, and Eliud did a fantastic job in Berlin, somebody asked me the question before that marathon came to an end. He said, have you counted the number of times Kenya has been mentioned on CNN, on BBC, all the channels, Al Jazeera? How many times? I don't think even the President of the Republic of Kenya, when he addresses the United Nations General Assembly, the word Kenya is mentioned as many times as when a Kenyan is out there in some of these very important athletic events. Instead of being rewarded even nationally because of what they do for the country, they are marketing the country, leave alone the athletic feat. Many times, the rewards are not commensurate with the wonderful work they've done for the country. So I think in celebrating these athletes, there's a little bit of a failure. And the athletes have been consistent. This is not something that is happening suddenly. Before the age of Kipchoge and GISHU, there were people like Arere and Entia, Serafina and Tao, and Nyandika Mayoro. Those were people who, put Kenya in the map when it was still a colony. And that became consistent up to the age of Kipchoge, Keino, and GISHU. And now we have many, countless, who every other day, every other month or year, they are bringing honor and success to this country. And you go to some of these countries, the iconic kind of celebration they give to these athletes, including monuments they erect for these athletes in their hometowns, in their cities. Here, probably, Kipchoge, Keino, you will not only hear about Kipchoge probably here in Eldoret in terms of monuments. You don't find any national monuments of our athletes in a city like Nairobi. When we are thinking about erecting a statue, it must be of some politician. Athletes are bringing honor to their countries more than even politicians. Politicians, sometimes we are a disgrace race. Yeah, in Kenya, and Mr. Speaker, somebody was talking about this, but when you hear people talking about politicians being paid in the toilets, and somebody was telling me when we went to meet the farmers, some farmer out there was telling me, hapa Kenya wanaume wanaiba mpaka kwa jikoni. So we are a bit of a disgrace race, but that is not to say that we should not try to do our best for the country. There was a time ago when the Coca-Cola wanted to refurbish Nyayo Stadium. They wanted to build it anew just before the World Cup passed through here on the way to South Africa. They wanted to do, in fact, they wanted it to be called a Coca-Cola Stadium. And they wanted to put a lot of money and maintain it for a period of 20 years. And there was resistance. It even went to cabinet. And because of the name Nyayo, they said, if you're going to refurbish the stadium, you still must call it Nyayo Stadium. So we said, really, I mean, what you're going to get is more important than the name. And the Nyayo as a name means nothing really. What is important is the Moi Stadium. But I think in relation to that stadium, what they were going to do, I think losing that name, I don't think it was as important as sending away Coca-Cola, who are willing to refurbish that stadium. But let me take away the point that we are not sufficiently celebrating our athletes, and more so because of the constant honor and fame they are bringing to this country. And they do it not just for the money. Most of them, I think, they don't think about the money. Money comes as a consequence. When you see them after winning a race, holding the Kenyan flag and doing a lap of honor, you feel patriotic. You feel like, Kenya is amongst the superpowers in the community of nations. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that now that we're in this city of champions, I think the resolutions in this motion are good, positive, but I think we must do something better for our athletes so that, the world out there would know that we are supporting our sportsmen and women. The other thing that, before I sit down, is that sports is becoming so professional in every sector of sports that even trying to look for talents, this is done when people are 4 or 5 years old. Even in Formula One, before somebody can get a license to drive, people are spotted at a very young age. Athletes that dominate sports for several years, that talent has got to be spotted early enough so that they can be enhanced and trained properly. In football, is even more important, and that requires some resources which should be spent. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to conclude by saying, if you go to Brazil, you would not miss the point that this is a football-loving nation. We are so good in athletics, and there's nothing to show for it. When Brazil, in the last Olympics in Brazil, in Rio, when Kipchoge was being celebrated, and world leaders were there, it was a celebration, a spectacle that went on for nearly 30 minutes. I felt so great and honored as a Kenyan that this single Kenyan at a world stage should be celebrated, not because of being a leader or being a politician, but just because of what he achieved in politics. So I hope that our government will try a little bit harder to try and put our sportsmen and women in front when we are doing our planning in the field of sports and management of public affairs. I was just remembering when the majority leader was talking about the cartels in sports, about the Athletic Association and others. These cartels, even in football, their work is made possible by what happens in government, in their relations with government. And you can find government officials fighting very hard to retain certain officials in this sports organization. And that's why sometimes they stay there almost forever. And I hope that now that sports is becoming more professional, in football is professional because it's left to the people who know how best to run it. Athletics, you find like people like Cole, who was a winner in the mile in the UK, heading sports, and now he's at the highest level of leadership in sports in the world. So the government needs to play a minimal role, but as we go to this athletic or sports organization, we need to get the best people to lead these organizations so that we can get the best from resources we put in sports, and athletes also can get the best from resources that are put in sports. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to second.
Order members. Order members. Honorable Senators, I now propose the question, which is that cognizant that Eliud Kipchoge broke the world marathon record held by a fellow Kenyan athlete, Dennis Kimeto, during the 2018 Berlin Marathon held on Sunday, 16 September 2018. Aware that Kenya has carried international respect in athletics over the years, courtesy of such hard work and stellar performance by our athletes in both on and off the field, events which has brought us together as a country and encouraged cohesion in line with our national anthem. Further aware that athletics has created significant economic opportunities and infrastructure in the Rift Valley, creating thousands of jobs for many would-be jobless youth, thus engaging them in productive and meaningful manner for purposes of nation building. Further aware that the youth are a critical component of the Big Four agenda by the government, and the development of athletes will lead to more productivity by a significant population of the youth who constitute a formidable part of the democratic structure of the country. Cognizant that more support from the government is needed to fight the doping menace that has bedeviled our athletes, and to encourage and motivate young and upcoming athletes to strive for excellency unattained by the vice, noting that performance by our sportsmen and women are indeed commendable and deserve special recognition, the Senate now commends Mr. Eliud Kipchoge for his excellent performance in the marathon and specifically for breaking the world marathon record, and urges the national government to A, set aside additional funds to improve sports facilities, B, establish a conducive environment in the country by giving incentives to investors in the sports sector, C, provide psychological support to active and former athletes, including pension scheme, and D, create a fund to cushion athletes who are forced to early retirement due to illness, injury, and other circumstances. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, when Eliud Kipchoge broke this world record in Berlin, I was having breakfast with the former president of Ghana, John Kufuor, and with him were former ministers of his government. And when he broke the record, Mr. Speaker, you would have thought I'm the one who had broken the record. I was hugged, I was greeted, I was cheered, and I felt very proud to be a Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, these young athletes of ours have done this country proud. Immediately, we celebrated Eliud Kipchoge. Gladys Cherono was on heels, Mr. Speaker, to win the Berlin Marathon as well. And I like the confidence of this Eliud Kipchoge. When he left Kenya, he said he was going to Berlin and is going to attempt to break a world record. He ended up breaking the world record, Mr. Speaker, by shaving off more than a minute, a period that may take the next 10 years to break by any other Kenyan, perhaps by himself if he tries next year. And he promised to do so. And Mr. Speaker, as we put things in perspective, once in a while, Mr. Speaker, I sit at the club in this town with Mzee Kipchoge Keino, a good friend. And you sit and listen to him as an encyclopedia of our athletics. And in the string of all he says, Mr. Speaker, is endless frustrations and frustrations of athletes from everybody, including the state. Even in Berlin, Mr. Speaker, when Eliud Kipchoge broke the world record, he was dropped in a flag of BMW, not the Kenyan flag. And the Kenyan ambassador was there. I could see the staff of our embassy there. What was so difficult about going there, carrying a Kenyan flag, even if he didn't break the world record? The fact that he was participating was enough to market the country with our flag.
These are some of the things, Mr. Speaker, that we need to address to support our athletes. When Pamela Jelimo won the Golden Circuit, the first woman in Kenya, at the age of 19, Mr. Speaker, I honored her by calling her to my office at Foreign Affairs. She was brought by Helen Sambili, and I gave her a diplomatic passport. The first athlete to sport a diplomatic passport. So that anywhere she goes, she's recognized as a Kenyan diplomat, marketing the country and giving a good image to the country. Mr. Speaker, we have had other greats. My namesake, Moses Kiptanui, and my good friend, was also the first Kenyan man to win the Golden Circuit and walk home with $1 million. And he's done very well. There are few who have done very well. There are others like the great Henry Rono, who fell by the wayside. And I agree fully with Murkomen, Senator, that we need to find a way of honoring and supporting these athletes in their sunset. If we are now able as a country, Mr. Speaker, to set up social safety net funds for old people, some who have never done anything for this country, we should be able to put a pension scheme, non-contributory, a pension scheme by the government to honor these athletes in their sunset days. Because some of them, Mr. Speaker, when they end up with either injuries or run into alcohol and other things, they become quite miserable. And you find them and people are laughing at them without remembering that when their flame was burning, it was bright enough for everybody to see. Mr. Speaker, the stock of athletes in this country was captured by one young man called Peter Rono in the Seoul Olympics. After he won a gold medal in 5,000 meters, he was asked to make a comment, and he said, it is easier to win an Olympic gold medal than to qualify in Kenya to go to the Olympics, because of talent in this country. And if we're to nurture this talent, Mr. Speaker, this would be a major foreign exchange honor. When I was foreign, Mr. Speaker, I included Kenyan athletes as one of the major pillars of our foreign policy. I even instructed protocol that every time our athletes go to marathons and all these places, they must be accompanied by a government protocol officer who will be able to help them talk to the media, speak before the event, and speak after the event, especially when there is a victory. This hasn't happened. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that the issues that are in the prayers of this motion be looked at very carefully and be implemented to the letter. Because if we don't do this, Mr. Speaker, all our athletes we have seen, there's a young man, a friend of mine called Cherono. He went to some country in the Middle East, even changed his name. You know, in desperation to earn a living, he changed his religion, he changed his name. He became Sahid, Sashin, something, you know. And eventually, he was found taking a beer and he was chased back. And he came back to Kenya, you know. And after they had exhausted his energy to run. So we can, Mr. Speaker, help our athletes, Mr. Speaker, by setting up high-altitude training centers. Mr. Speaker, you know very well, we started with you. In the count of Bungoma, Mr. Speaker, we have set up a high-altitude training center on Mount Elgon, where greats like Masai, the Benjamin Kipchoge, and others come from. Our high-altitude training center is almost complete, and it will be competing with the Lorna Kiplagat's high-altitude training center in Iten. And in our counties where we produce athletes, Kericho, Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet, GISHU here, Trans Nzoia, I would want to see such build-up. Even my tycoon friend from Nyeri, we have had very good athletes from Nyeri, and you have the capacity even to set up one yourself so that you can be able to help young athletes, Mr. Speaker. We have had great runners like John Ngugi, like Wanjiru, and others from the Mount Kenya region. What we lack, Mr. Speaker, are facilities. What we lack is the will. What we lack is government support. What we lack is a tracking system where these young people can be helped to develop and nurture their talent. I want to leave others to contribute, Mr. Speaker, but I stand here, a very proud Kenyan, and my friend Eliud Kipchoge, whom we know each other very well. I want to tell you that while I was in Ghana, I enjoyed your limelight on your behalf. Thank you.
Senator Linturi.
Mr. Speaker, for those that are complaining, I think one thing they must be able to appreciate. There are very few senators here that are senior than I am in terms of service, designation as a member of parliament. So for that matter, I think it's also important, Senator Malala, to respect age. Mr. Speaker, let me join the move of this motion, Senate Majority Leader, the Deputy Minority Leader, and Senior Moses Wetangula, in appreciating the good performance by this great Kenyan, Eliud Kipchoge, for really breaking the world record. Mr. Speaker, it is not easy that such people, such a great Kenyan will come from this area of champion and excel to the extent that it puts Kenya into the world map, to the extent that even as Moses Wetangula was having breakfast with the former President Kufuor, was able to be cheered, was able to be appreciated for the work that was done by nobody else other than Eliud. Mr. Speaker, how I long for a time that our own country will be able to appreciate.
Senator Dulo?
Sorry, Senator Linturi, I'm not stopping you. But Mr. Speaker, I'm raising on standing order number 106 in the interest of time and also the number of members who want to speak to this particular motion. I would request if the debate is reduced to 5 minutes for each member. I thank you.
Yes, granted.
So, Mr. Speaker, how I long for a time when our national leaders and everybody else will be able to demonstrate the appreciation that they attach to these great Kenyans when they do us proud. I'm just imagining that come December, when the President of this Republic is awarding people honors or people are given medals, how often do we find athletes that have won international medals or international recognition being decorated by the end of the state? Mr. Speaker, it may look as if that is something small. No, it isn't. It's a great thing. Athletics, Mr. Speaker, sports, Mr. Speaker, plays a critical role in bringing about national integration and national cohesion. I support the aspect that we must be able to set aside the funds to create more facilities for people to train. I am really disturbed when I find or I hear that probably within the Ministry of Sports and other departments, there is no pension fund that or monies that can be availed to these sportsmen or sportsmen once they get to retirement ages. And for your information, Mr. Speaker, as we even strive to think through about this thing, any sportsman is a serious candidate for arthritis. Because as you're training, you wear out your bones, you wear out your muscles. So other than even pension, Mr. Speaker, we must also think on how we can easily be able to provide them with a serious medical scheme. Because as they age, they will require constant attention, constant medication. And this happened as they strove to ensure or to make Kenya appear great and look great in the international arena. Mr. Speaker, I won't say I'm happy to be here and to contribute this motion in this great county of UASIN GISHU, but I think time has come when we must all be serious, when we must all think seriously and be able to bring about policies or decisions that can be able to assist people that do not have the opportunity to really hug their cases out, and especially with the agencies that are required to make them feel comfortable and enjoy or have a retirement that befits their status in society, and especially recognizing what they did when they were growing up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Senator Professor Ongeri, keep it brief.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand here to give testimony to the history of athletics in this country. Very few of you will know that I was a sports administrator. I was in the Medical Commission, International Amateur Athletic Association Medical Commission. I was the vice chairman of Athletics Kenya and took over as the chairman of athletics in this country. The story of Kenyan athletes started at the time when Naftali Temu in Mexico, 1968, won the 10,000 meters, heralding in the first ever gold medal that was brought in this country. The stadium, Nyao Stadium, today used to be a park for snakes and for all the hooligans in Nairobi. That field belonged to the late Derek Askan. When I took over as the chairman of Athletics Kenya, we wanted to put up that stadium to the current status in which it is today. It is instructive that we missed the 1976 Olympics in Montreal because we boycotted those games, and we missed the 1980 Moscow Games that were going to be held. And it took us during the championship at Kakamega Bukungu Stadium to make the request to the President, Moi Kibaki, to be able to allow us to use the money that we missed going to Moscow to develop the stadium, which is today called Nyao Stadium. That was the first time that we were able to get a decent facility. And I want to put it on record that the perimeter fence that you see standing today, it took 2.5 million Kenya shillings to put that perimeter fence. Try to put one today, it will be in terms of billions. And I want to mention that we took a private architect to be able to develop that area. Now, secondly, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I want to come up very well, I was nearly thrown out of International Athletic Medical Commission in Rome when we were talking about the doping and the issue of doping in our countries. Because I saw the danger, that one of the biggest danger, which has been cited in this motion today through the efforts of Eliud Kipchoge, that one of the main contentions was that so-called sports agents, they took our athletes, they wanted to give them some doping agents, and we were objecting that that was not going to be the right thing to do. And I'm glad that we won that war. And I want this House to appreciate that the change of amateur athletics to professional athletics started because we realized that our athletes are being misused for running for peanuts, whereas in football at that time, they had brought in professionalism so they are able to earn the money. Mr. Speaker, today Kenyans athletes are the ones that are earning quite a lot of money, and in that case, they have the potential to invest heavily. One of the counties that used to be very forward-looking was Kisii County. We went down, but we're not down yet. We will be up again. Because one of the things that we have done is now to ginger up the young men and women. And we took the one who used to be the best footballer, Henry Motego, is now the one in charge of the sports in the county. And that's the way we can be able to improve the sports fraternity. When I was the Minister for Education, one of the things that we did, we realized that being able to pursue education through the vertical line, through the academic line, was not possible because the talents were different in various groups of people, of Kenyans. Some were excelled in boxing, others excelled in athletics, and we did what we call educational reform. I think Attorney General Amos Wako will remember in cabinet when we brought in, late Mutula Kalonzo, we brought in the amendments in the reform education, and we created talent academies. And I think that's where the government today must invest heavily in talent academies and be able to build up the infrastructure of sports in every county, because this nation has the potential to raise wonderful athletes like Eliud Kipchoge. Even if they cross, they take all the medals in the world, that's our right. Because my time is up, thank you.
Thank you. Other senators, now I've been approached by Senator Ledama Olekina with a suggestion, if the House do agree, we further recommend a reduction of time to 3 minutes to allow as many senators as possible to speak on this motion.
Okay, sir.
Order, order, order. And so to avoid the points of orders, the Speaker is acting under Standing Order number 1, because as you know, Standing Order number 106 has its own criteria. So is that the mood of the House? Yes. 3 minutes? Yes. Very well. 3 minutes for every speaker from now. Very well. And actually to make it easier, because, you know, when one side speaks, there is no need for that senator from that side to stand again, because the chance will go to the other side and vice versa. Very well. Senator Dr. Milgo.
Hey. Okay. Mr. Speaker, sir, can you protect me from the noise in this?
Order, senators, order. Order, Senator Ongeri, you've just had your chance. Order, Senator Amos Wako.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First of all, allow me to take this particular chance, because I had not gotten any chance to speak, to really thank our Speaker, the Right Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, and my colleagues, the senators, for the brotherly and sisterly love they showed me recently when I had a fire tragedy in my family. I can never even express the happiness that they showed me. And further, Senator Naomi Shionga and Senator Faria visited me in my home. That was indeed a lot of blessing to me, and I can never thank you enough. I only want to say, may God bless you. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me add my voice to the motion of today and thank the mover of this motion that actually sports is a pride to Kenya. And I wish to also commend Eliud Kipchoge for what he did to Kenya recently. I would have wished more ladies are also brought here, because there are many other ladies that have also broken a record, but yesterday we were advised on how to go about so that we also recognize ladies. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to say that we are in the county of champions, and actually sportsmen and women have taken the lead in terms of investments in this particular county. And even in my own county, Bomet County, the first IRAS building was one from an athlete. It is indicated Boston. That building is written Boston Marathon, because that is where the guy, or rather the athlete, achieved the medal. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, recently Bomet County was turned into a frenzy because of 2 athletes, Petris Chepkoech and Kipngetich Ngeno, that won in the just concluded marathon. And already one sub-county in my constituency, in my county, Konoin constituency, is priding itself as a home of champions because of those 2 particular athletes. And Mark Chu, they were not even number 1, they were just position 2. We are so excited, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wish to really support the idea of putting in place a proper policy so that we have at least being assisted in terms of managing the finances that they achieve out of this, and in addition to this, so that their pensions in future will be able to assist them so that we don't have them languishing in poverty like we've seen in most cases. Mr. Speaker, so recently I had a chance to go to lead a delegation to Australia. The worst thing was the idea of that is materials, issues of even dress code, issues of even shoes. I think you can still remember a scenario where the sports uniform was stolen, Mr. Speaker. In fact, when the Commonwealth Games were being opened in Australia, in fact, we were so ashamed because everybody came in very colorful attire, and when ours came, it was very frustrating. However, they managed to be very, to really shine, and you should have seen how I danced
Your
there.
time
You
is
can
up,
visualize.
Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Senator Panidi.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that seniority is working here. Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator. Order.
Yes.
Order. Other than seniority, we are also looking at so many other factors.
Yes.
Including regional diversity and gender.
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker.
Political parties.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There isn't much we can say in 3 minutes, but let me thank you for the opportunity and thank the mover for bringing this very, very important motion so that we can record our thanks and kudos to our great athlete. I want to add my voice on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Vihiga, congratulate Eliud Kipchoge for the achievement that he made for himself and for this country, Mr. Speaker. It was not a mean feat. Mr. Speaker, he did us proud. He has put Kenyans on the map. And what we are forgetting that he was breaking a record that was put there by another Kenyan. So that looks like our domain. Mr. Speaker, while I was the Assistant Minister for Tourism and Wildlife, I led a delegation to Europe, Canada, and USA to market this country. And Mr. Speaker, I thought that our biggest forte would be wildlife and the safaris. But only to learn that on reaching there, we are more known in terms of athletics than even those other things that we've invested so much money and our hopes in. So I just want to join those who have spoken before me to say that it is a high time that we invest more in this. If India was able to come up with what they are calling medical tourism, because they realize that's their strong point, then I think we should emulate from that and see if we can come up also with sports tourism as a country. I fully support the motion. I fully support the prayers that have been put there by the mover. And Mr. Speaker, I urge all of us to support this motion and make sure that it does not just end at the motion, but maybe come up with a bill in future to make sure that this is implemented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first, I'd have wanted some few more minutes as the chairman of the committee that deals with sports, because our committee is doing actually a lot on these issues, but I'll leave that to your direction. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to have grown up in a family of athletes. My late mother, Emily Ayoti Kubasu, then as she was known, is one of the last Kenyans to win medals in short distances in this country. In the days of Alice Adala, in the days of Jenny McKenna, and many other greats. In fact, my parents met at a sporting event. And a long-running joke that we've had as a family was the newspaper cutting of the wedding day, because it was a newspaper. And it says, "Star athlete marries tire dealer." Despite the fact that then my dad was a marketing manager at Firestone. Mr. Speaker, I've had senators asking what happened to me. I also got into sports, Mr. Speaker, but I fell in love with rugby when I was in high school. Mr. Speaker, we are proud that we have, such great athletes in our country. More needs to be done, Mr. Speaker, and I'll go straight to the point. Today we've had interactions with the County Assembly Committee on Youth and Sports in GISHU. It's a role that really county governments must be. in developing the facilities, in making sure that they have correct budgets to make sure we have stadia and that we have, that we can nurture our sports people. Our young people in schools, Mr. Speaker, these days schools are being approved without playing grounds. Before it was unheard of that a school can actually be approved without a playing ground. We want to make sure that is implemented, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support a lot of teams in this country, Mr. Speaker. As you may well know, I'm the patron of FC Leopards. I've been the patron of the Kenya Professional Boxing Commission, Mr. Speaker, among other sports. And I have seen how our star athletes and our star, sports people are suffering. Mr. Speaker, this House will share in my embarrassment at the fact that when the Kenya Rugby World Cup team, the 15th team was qualifying for the Rugby World Cup, I had to buy them shoes personally from my pocket, Mr. Speaker, during our World Cup qualifier. Mr. Speaker, they did not earn a single shilling as salary. They're only given 2,000 shillings as allowances. Yet it's one sport that has made us shine in this world, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, more needs to be done. And as a committee, we've invited, first of all, the unions of the players, for those who have, and we're encouraging them to come together. Number two, we've invited the federations to understand what they need, the ministry, and the county CECs in sports, so that we can make sure that we have a solution. Mr. Speaker, in the gallery, you see young people. Not all of them will excel in academics. Some of them have actually talents in sports. And the young people, as trustees of this country's posterity, must be allowed to nurture their talent in sports. Mr. Speaker, on top of that, a lot of our boxers, including some who I support, like Fatuma Zarika, who is a WBC champion, Mr. Speaker, this House will be embarrassed to know that a WBC champion of the world, super bantamweight, still rides in a matatu and still struggles to parent. I've been even supporting her family, Mr. Speaker. It's a shame. Look what happened to Conjesina Achieng. Maurice, who is the Kenya heavyweight boxing champion today, Mr. Speaker, is a struggling policeman who even cannot get housing facilities within the police, Mr. Speaker. A lot must be done by this House in all these sports, Mr. Speaker, and it does not take that much amount of money to be set aside. So, Mr. Speaker, we'll be coming back to this House as a committee with proposals and an update. These summonses have been issued for the next 1 or 2 months, and we hope that other senators can join. I've seen many senators supporting sports, though the ones in NASA only come when Tinga comes to watch FC Leopards.
Order.
But the ones in Jubilee have been coming consistently. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Senator Moy. Senator Moy.
Thank you very much, Congo Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to...
Order, Senator. What did you just say?
I said thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to support this motion. In fact, I'd like to say a huge thanks and congratulations to Eliud Kipchoge. He made us all proud as a country. And to break the record, who one of my villagers held, Tergat from Baringo, was of note. Mr. Speaker, because of limited time, a lot of my speakers have said and hit the point that we need to do much for our heroes after post the profession. Mr. Speaker, but how do we fund it? What I was thinking, Mr. Speaker, we should do what the Western world does, especially the UK. We set up a lottery. And in the lottery, you get a slice from the lottery, which will be pumping millions and hundreds of millions of shillings to nurture sports, to look after, to pay for the insurance for heroes, and make sure that not only does it come to the athletics per se, but all sports in general. You've heard about boxing. You've heard about rugby. And we also need to nurture cricket. Mr. Speaker, one of the champions of cricket going forward, you'll be seeing none but yours truly. Because I believe that we've got massive talents in all over the counties in nurturing cricket. Mr. Speaker, and yes, you're saying polo. Yes, of course, even that. Mr. Speaker, one other I'd like to say is that I'd like to congratulate all the previous athletes who've made us proud, especially from GISHU, home of Professor Kamar. They've made us proud. From Nandi, they say it's the home of champions and source of champions. They're the greatest, but Baringo are the latest. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased. I may not be here with you tomorrow because I'm going for peace meetings in Baringo, but it's one of the things that we should be doing is showing our youth that there's other talents apart from destructive ways and means, and sports is one of them. Thank you very much.
Very well, Senator Wako with a Q.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would want to say that I stand to support this motion and also congratulate the young man, Kipchoge, who made us proud. He's our son, and we are proud of him together with others. What I want to say in brief, Mr. Speaker, is that we have many Kenyans who have the same talent but has not been nurtured. So my request to all the counties is to invest in this so that our young people can be able to bring out their talents and compete with others so that they can also make us proud. The other thing is, as a nation, we need to set aside a day to celebrate our athletes. They have always made us proud. The only thing that unites Kenyans or make us one, I believe, is athletics. When that happens, or when we go anywhere and we see one of us or one of our sons and daughters doing us proud by winning, we all get proud and excited, and that is the time we realize that we are true Kenyans. Finally, before I finish, Mr. Speaker, we are also concerned by the rate that we are losing our young athletes. Recently, we lost 2 in accident, and I believe they are equally busy as people like us, politicians. And my thinking is that in the policy that will come up, or the bill, or anything that will be proposed, we recommend that they have drivers permanently so that they are being, they don't drive themselves because they die when they're young and they leave widows behind, and their children are left behind and in a very poor state. We also, there is something that has been suggested that under C, provides psychosocial support to active and former athletes, including pension scheme.
Summarize, wind up.
Yes, pension scheme. I want to suggest that even the wives of the athletes or the spouses be considered, because we don't want them to suffer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, thank you. Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is imperative that we promote and nurture talent. What is happening in this country? I grew up, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the United States of America. And when I was going to college...
Order, senators, order. Order, Senator Moi, you have had your chance. Order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, when I was in college, I played basketball. And the fact that I was playing sports gave me an opportunity to get a scholarship. In this country, we seems to be punishing our athletes. County governments, and I speak this because in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, sir, we defend the interest of counties. I think county governments should take a key role in supporting these athletes. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have the likes of Eliud Kipchoge, who I congratulate and I commend for having done us proud. We have people like Elijah Manangoi. We have young men like Kinyamal from Transmara, who ran 800 meters. Mr. Speaker, sir, we went to the Gold Coast to be able to learn how best to come and improve sports in our country. I think it behooves us now as leaders to be able to come up with a legislation that will mandate county governments to improve sports facilities, to improve the welfare of these young men and women, because there's no point as to why a young man like Kinyamal or Elijah Manangoi would leave Narok and come and live here in Eldoret so that he can be able to get a place to be able to go and run. There are no fields. When we talk about boxing, there's a lot of idleness in this country, Mr. Speaker, sir, because of lack of employment. I think once we have these sport facilities, develop camps, sports camps, we can really be able to help our youth. We can be able to give them an opportunity
to be able to change their lives. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the things that really worries me is that even financial management skills, these young men and women do not have. Because on the other side, if you're making a lot of money, you should be taught how to manage those resources. This issue of athletes should not be like betting, where you win $1 million, and then before the next time, we start reading that you're what? You're going on a matatu. Responsibility, they have to be taught. And the only way, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we can be able to ensure this responsibility is by developing a legislation that supports these athletes. We tax them. As we tax them, we are talking about developing pension schemes. It is a little bit hypocritical when we say, let's develop a pension scheme, yet they are making money and they are using that money and they are not saving for the future. This is the same problem we have worldwide when it comes to the issues of our military. When we use them for them to protect us, but when they retire, we don't support them. So, Mr. Speaker, sir,
time is up.
I support.
Thank you. Senator Professor Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join my colleagues and the mover in congratulating Eliud Kipchoge. I want to thank the Senator of Elgeyo Marakwet for moving this motion, because what was happening in Berlin was very interesting. It was a competition between Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet, and UASIN GISHU.
Order, Senator. Are you sure there were counties competing in Berlin?
Honorable Speaker, I want to honor the Elgeyo Marakwet County Senator, because he brought out some things that all of us have been thinking about for a very long time. But as I congratulate Eliud Kipchoge, I would like to congratulate 3 others who didn't break records, but they also brought gold to this country. Gladys Cherono, Wilson Kipsang, and Amos Kipruto. All 3 actually were leading stars in the Berlin Marathon. So, Speaker, I would like to agree with those, with the 2 recommendations A and B, that we strongly need to come up with improved sports facilities in this country. So, Speaker, if you look at the 4 who have brought gold and the many who have brought gold in this country, they were just trying on their own, running around the fields in schools which were not even marked, running from school to home to school. We need to prepare strategically, because, Mr. Speaker, we can harvest more and we can have more students, even going abroad because of scholarships. We know there are so many athletic scholarships. Mr. Speaker, I hope you will give me 2 more minutes, because this was...
Why? But
I didn't know I was talking to the sky.
No.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to agree that we truly need government to take the responsibility of building facilities. We know we would like also encourage the private sector to invest. But if you look at the kind of people that we are dealing with, they cannot even pay the 1,000 per month to be in a camp. They cannot, because they are very young people. But there are also very nice opportunities that we have seen in this county of UASIN GISHU, opportunities for scholarships for athletes. We have tried to help them have time trials, but the best way to do it is to have government-sponsored facilities. Because if we do this, Mr. Speaker, we will have created a new line of scholarship for Kenyan youth. We know the talent is ours. We know Kenyans are respected. We even have universities coming out here to look for students that they can give athletic scholarships. So yes, we have the opportunity, we have the potential, but we must organize ourselves so that our youth can practice in an organized way, and our youth can actually have the opportunities that we didn't have ourselves, and the opportunities that some of our colleagues whose parents were athletes were not able to be athletes themselves. Mr. Speaker, I think I agree that there is need to encourage them to save. They don't even need our pension from anybody else. They need it from themselves. But we need to help them, train them, organize them, so that they have athletic organizations where they can do their savings for the future. Because yes, in this town, there are a lot of investments that they have given us, but we need them to bless themselves.
Senator
Thank
Kamar.
you.
Senator Amos Wako.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I thank the mover of the motion, the leader of majority. When I visited America for the first time in 1979, I was surprised that the only person people in America knew at that time was not my president. It was not anybody else. It was Kipchoge Keino. It was Naftali Temu. So I said, hey, this athletics is something. So, but as a nation, we have not invested properly and heavily in sports. We have benefited a lot, but we have not invested properly. The issue of talents also were identified when they were very young and sent to the academies, and they excelled. And therefore, this is an area to me where we need to invest very heavily. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think that we, as a nation, have to learn a lot from the athletes. One, the athletes unite us. If you find Moses Wetangula, who comes from an area where even, he cannot finish at 50 yards, thinking that when Kipchoge won, he was the one winning, then Adisaluya is whatever. That is something they evoke in us, the spirit of the Kenya nation. So we should learn from that on that one. Secondly, we as politicians should learn to have our competitions as politicians be very transparent, be very fair, be very open. Because we accept that the athletes, because even if they come from one area, we gladly accept that because the competition has been open and transparent. The same thing will not happen in politics because the competition is not open, is not transparent. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, let us also learn, Mr. Speaker, sir, from the athletes. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me also add that the ABC, DE should be national honors. There's no need for chairmen of committees for ministers to be automatically be given EGH, automatically be given EBS, automatically be given Order of the Grand Warrior and so on. What have they done to win that, except win elections which are not maybe free and fair?
Order, Senator.
So automatically, this winner should get some national honors. Thank you.
Order, your time is up, Senator Wako. Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join the rest of my colleagues in celebrating this great Kenyan Eliud Kipchoge for this momentous feat that he's achieved. The highlight of the day for me, Mr. Speaker, when the New York Times sent out a tweet with the title, "Move over Usain Bolt, here comes Eliud Kipchoge." That was a great feat, Mr. Speaker, because for those of us that are fans of sports and athletics, they know that Usain Bolt is a giant. And for other people, not even ourselves as Kenyans, to claim that the stature that Eliud has achieved is way above that of Usain Bolt was a great moment for us as Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, I also want to join the rest of my colleagues into calling ourselves as leaders to pay keen attention on how we manage sports in this country. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the budget that was passed by the National Assembly, the sports ministry had the least allocation. This stems from the kind of attitude that we got growing up for those of us that went to public schools. Many of the times that the teacher will walk in and they'd say that if it is time for physical education, you don't necessarily have to participate in it. Unfortunately, we have carried on that kind of attitude even in the management of our resources as public leaders, such that we treat sport matters with so much casualness without realizing that this is an industry that can employ so many of our young people that continues to give praise and honor. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, it is incumbent of us to remember that...
Order, Senator Wako. There is a creeping habit when you have a chance to speak. When you finish speaking, you disrupt the others. So you have 1.5 minutes, Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Thank you. I'll use that half minute to pass a message that I have in my heart this afternoon, Mr. Speaker. But in concluding, what I wanted to say is that even if we do not honor our athletes, at least internationally, they'll continue to be recognized. In 2012, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring it to the attention of this House that the Cabinet Secretary, or then Minister for Sports, had to pose as a PA to one of the sports legends of his country to access the hallowed halls of the Olympic halls in London, because they couldn't be, you know, the way we carry ourselves as politicians, and you imagine you're so big people, and they go to the Olympics with this delegation. I was told, who are you? He said, I'm a minister for sports in Kenya. I was told, oh, those are very small people. We don't recognize them here. And he had to pose as a PA of Paul Tergat so that they were allowed into the hall. So the message is, even if we do not honor our athletes, other people will. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I said that I have a message in my heart that I feel that is heavy, and I must bring it to the attention of this House. There are tribal clashes that are going on in Narok and Nakuru counties. Unfortunately, the words of one of our colleagues who is seated with us here this afternoon continue to pinch my heart.
Order, Senator. You cannot discuss.
You see, the guilty are always afraid.
Order, Senator Cheruyot. Order. Order. Order, everybody. Order, Senator Aaron Cheruyot. Order, Senator Olekina. Senator Cheruyot. Order. I said order. Order. Senator Aaron Cheruyot, you are now doing your second term in this House. You cannot discuss the conduct of a colleague senator unless you introduce a substantive motion. So I advise you to wind up your remarks and abstain from discussing any senator in or outside this chamber. You cannot discuss a member of this House without a substantive motion.
Mr. Speaker, I'll just conclude by saying, may the government arrest all warmongers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina, have you heard the direction which the chair has given?
Yes, I have.
So I'm sure you don't want to interfere with what already has been decided. Senator Naomi Shionga.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this motion. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to start by thanking the mover of this motion, the majority leader in the House. It is the highest time, Mr. Speaker, for us to honor our sportsmen and our sportswomen in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenya is losing many of our young, brilliant athletics to other countries of this continent. Mr. Speaker, sir, our own athletics who are young and who we are looking at when we consider the Big Four agenda are not being looked at in a way that the government or the country needs to look at their own athletics. Mr. Speaker, sir, athletics has highly ranked the country of Kenya internationally in high standards, in high performance, and in high records that are recognized internationally. It is the highest time Kenya as a country needs to change its focus on how they look at our athletics or our young athletics in the country in terms of moral support and in terms of management. Mr. Speaker, sir, poor infrastructure affects standards of any performance of any competitor. It is unfortunate.
Conclude, Senator.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm concluding. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the highest time that the success of our athletics needs to be compelled and achieved in a way that a country that looks at its standard needs to invest a lot in the athletics of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would have spoken a lot.
Very well. You will speak another time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Senator Imana, Professor Imana, Turkana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to...
You're not on record, Senator Imana.
Fine. Yes,
Proceed.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to complain if you had chosen Honorable
Order, Senator.
Honorable Doctor, because he's younger than me and
Order,
he
Senator.
gets up faster than I can. So thank you. Thank you for picking me up. I support this motion, and I would like to thank the Leader of Majority for bringing this motion on. As a nation, I think we are growing up. Kenya is grown up as a nation because finally we came to our senses to say we need to start to honor our athletes. We need to start building athletic institutions where our youngsters can go train and go compete in the world to bring glory to Kenya. I like this very much. When I was a young man in high school and higher school, the people that I admired a lot were people like Kano, Kipchoge, Kiprono, and so on and so forth. Surprise, when I went to study in the US, even though I had an honors degree in physics, when I got out there, you know what they were asking me? Did you come here as an athlete? What kind of race do you run? And I had nothing to do with that athletics. I was actually just coming to school. And then they were asking me, do you know Wilson Waigwa? I said, I know him, but I haven't seen him. So it turns out that people over there put a lot of importance in athletics than they put in academics. So it is really true that those athletes market Kenya more than any of us. And for that reason, we really need to put some money in building institutions that are going to give our youngsters the time and the opportunity to kind of train and be the best in the world. I know that my University of El Paso, Texas, has Paul Ehring as their coach. Paul Ehring, you remember, is that Olympian. And he comes to this country every year to recruit from Kenya. So I think we should put a lot of emphasis on training our youngsters so they can qualify for scholarships.
Summarize,
overseas.
Senator.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, thank you. Senator Malala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator, you started walking before you were called out. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, in the absence of Senior Counsel James Orengo, I am the leader of minority. And therefore, I had confidence enough that you are going to select me. Mr. Speaker, I stand to join my distinguished colleagues in congratulating and commending Eliud Kipchoge for breaking the world marathon record. And Mr. Speaker, I think the issue of sports can be used as a platform for cohesion and integration in this country. We've had issues of communities clashing. We've had issues of differences between one region and another in this country. We had issues of political intolerance in this country. And the only platform that we can use as legislators, as leaders of this country, is the sports platform. I want to encourage every leader that is here, Mr. Speaker, to use the sports instrument as an instrument of putting Kenya together. The chairman of the Building Bridges Initiative is here, Honorable Aji. I would like you to adopt that as a method of bringing this country together, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in emphasizing the fact that we need to celebrate the people who have won such accolades, even at earlier stages, Mr. Speaker. Recently here in Eldoret, this town hosted the Kenya Secondary School Stamp 2B Games, where Kakamega High School won the football championship, where Tawi Girls, where Upper Hill participated and won, Mr. Speaker. We need to start celebrating these young talents as early as when they are participating in the secondary school games, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even as legislators, as senators, I want to challenge each one of us here. When you go back to your respective counties,
make sure you use the sports platform to bring your people together. Personally, in Kakamega County, on 6th of October, Mr. Speaker, I have come up with an initiative called Super Senator Cup, Kakamega version, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a tournament that is going to bring around almost 20,000 youth of Kakamega between the month of October and December. Mr. Speaker, we need to find ways in which we encourage and give back to the youth of this country in a good way, Mr. Speaker. For example, Mr. Speaker, I am sad that the Kenyan Premier League can be played for 8 months only for a team to win 2 million shillings, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the tournament that I'm hosting in Kakamega, the winning team will go home with 1 million Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. I want to encourage all the leaders, Mr. Speaker, to prioritize sports in their mandate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, lastly, we need to challenge the current establishment in their commitment in terms of investing in sports, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2013, the Jubilee government went around this country pledging that they will do 5 stadiums in 100 days, Mr. Speaker. Up to now, we do not have a single stadium in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, that has been built out of their commitment and their pledge during the 2013 elections, Mr. Speaker. I want to challenge the current establishment to be serious with executing matters sports. I want to challenge the CS for sports, my brother, my good friend, CS Rashid Achesa, to concentrate on the issues of developing sports and not concentrate on other issues that do not help the development of sports. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mahmoud.
So, Speaker, sir, let me also add my voice in supporting this motion, in commending Eliud Kipchoge for doing a wonderful job in the marathon. So, Speaker, sir, this country is well known by many outside this country through our athletes. In fact, when you talk to foreigners, I happen to have served in the foreign ministry as an ambassador and have met many outsiders, and they'll tell you from Kenya, sportsmen, Kenyans run. In fact, the brand of Kenya in many nations all over the world is actually that we run. And those sportsmen actually have developed that on their own. And sometimes you will think that Kenyans do well on their own. I think when you come to organized sports like football, although football is very popular in Kenya, it has never made to international arena, I think. No Kenyan team has ever gone to the international arena. But our sportsmen, our athletes have done us proud. It's time they are supported. And in fact, as said by the mover of the motion, the leader majority, also their spotlight is very short because after 10 years, I think they get tired. So they must, because also they move into this field of sports, athletes, and make money. And I think it's important that they are organized, trained, so that they can be able to safeguard the resources that they have gained. So, Speaker, sir, I think it's important that the talents that are there in Kenya is harnessed, supported. In fact, the stadia that are there in this country be improved so that, it becomes, I think, an organized sport that actually can help Kenyans. We, as a country, should not just be riding on the back of those sportsmen. Rather, we should be helping them to be able to go to those international arenas so that, when they win, as they win, they raise the flag of Kenya.
Summarize, Senator.
With those few remarks, I support the motion. Thank you very much.
Senator Maura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I want to correct my good brother, Senator Malala, that in this house there is only one super senator, Senator Johnson.
Order, there is no super senator in this house.
Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, at the same time, I also want to recognize a very brilliant lady from UASIN GISHU, Margaret Sawe, who really appeared before the Budget and Finance Committee and went through interviews, as now she represents the Senate in the SRC. I think on behalf of counties, it's good to recognize the great talent that we have here. Mr. Speaker, I was very surprised some times back reading the profile of one George Bush. And when he was asked the George Bush Jr., that who is his role model? And he said that his role model is Paul Tergat. I mean, I was very surprised because in terms of the hierarchy of power, you'd want to imagine that the President of America is possibly the most powerful person on this earth politically. And yet, his own role model was one of our own, Paul Tergat, who, if he was to walk on the streets of Nairobi, very few Kenyans would actually identify him. And that really underscores the way in which we ourselves as a country have not been able to recognize the potential that we have in this country. Maybe when we talk about celebration, we should not just limit this celebration to a party, to pomp and color, because really we are known for that, Mr. Speaker. And then after that, everybody goes home feeling very happy. The next time, we'll be trolling and ridiculing those who fall into abject poverty. And Mr. Speaker, this is the same journey that politicians do. You give yourself to public service, but eventually, when things are not working, you are relegated to the periphery. Mr. Speaker, there is no lack of laws to ensure that we take care of our athletes. Because in the first instance, in the 11th Parliament, we were able to pass the Heroes Act. And the Heroes Act recognizes that sports and athletics is one of the grounds through which then we can identify heroes and heroines so that then we can honor them. And I think, as Senator Amos Wako was saying, if they were to be given national honors, it would also serve to sanctify this otherwise practice that people may have lost confidence in. It is a question of ensuring that we do not just glorify certain aspects of our communal prosperity and leaving others that make us very, very strong. In fact, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I would want to say that most of us, when we go out there, people ask us whether we are able to run, even if we could be as big as are not able even to walk properly, simply because we come from Kenya. I think it's high time that we are able to harness these great talents that we have, not just by what, by implementing the Heroes Act and honoring our athletes.
Yes. Senator Maina Kirinyaga.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion and say that as, there is this great gentleman, Mr. Kipchoge, but besides Mr. Kipchoge, let me resound the same sentiments that we are in a talented country as far as sports is concerned. But we should actually ask ourselves how we have actually handled this talent. To me, we have behaved like the elephant which carries tasks without knowing the value of tasks. We don't seem to recognize the value of these young men and women. And Mr. Speaker, we should do more. And this doing more should start with the counties here. The counties that where this talent is, let them actually look and see what they could also be starting to do. Besides stadiums, there is the personal suffering of these people, which takes very little resources. Let's even the counties here see what they can do. And then the national government should come up now with something encompassing the whole country. Because, Mr. Speaker, the issue of athletes, I may say, is not a simple thing. And I remember one time there was a boxing match just before, during the Second World War, just before the war got very serious. And the one boxer was an American, the other one was a German. And I can say the American boxer was called by President Roosevelt in his White House to encourage him, same in Germany. And, because they were seeing it as actually a model of the people of America and the people of Germany. Therefore, even here, when our people win, let me say, I don't think there is any other country in the world which has ever won number 1, number 2, number 3. But Kenya has done it not once, a couple of times. And
summarize.
It just looks to go with the wind. Let me say, in most countries, South Africa here, when their first person won some gold,
He was met at the airport by the president himself. And Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion and say it's high time we woke up and do something for our people, our athletes.
Senator Zawadi.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii ili nami nikaweze kuchangia katika mdahalo huu. Nataka ni mpongeze Eliud Kipchoge kwa kuvunja rekodi, na najua siye peke yake, kuna wenzake wengi ambao walitangulia hapo nyumaye, lakini pia sasa ni wakati mzuri mdahalo huu umekuja. Nataka kuzungumzia jambo moja ambalo kwangu naliona ni zito sana, hasa sisi watu wa Mombasa. Michezo kwetu haijatiliwa mkazo sana, na niseme kitaifa kwa ujumla. Serikali ya kitaifa na pia serikali ya ugatuzi haijatilia mkazo sana mambo ya michezo. Na nikiangalia tuko na changamoto kubwa ya ukosefu wa kazi. Kama michezo ingekuwa imetiliwa mkazo, watu wengi wangefaidika. Kule kwetu kuna mihadarati, kuna mambo mengi ambayo yameharibu watoto. Kama hii michezo ingekuwa imetiliwa mkazo vile inavyotakiwa, watoto wengi wangekuwa wamepukana na madawa kulevya ama ile mihadarati ambayo iko kule. Na pia vile vile napendekeza kama wenzangu walivyotangulia, wamesema kungekuwa na kitengo fulani ambapo wana michezo wangekuwa wanaangaliwa. Napongeza kitengo kama hicho kiwepo, napendekeza kiwepo. Na pia vile vile jana tukiwa kwa komiti ya barabara na usafiri, kuna mama mmoja alisema kina baba mara nyingi amewafananisha wanaume kama ndege. Wanasema wanaume ni kama ndege, wako na miti mingi. Kwa hivyo hii miti ya wanaume kama ingepungua, na hakika ufisadi ungepungua hapa Kenya. Na nimesema hivyo kwa sababu wanaume wengi ndio wanashikilia nyadhifa kubwa kubwa wa hizo nafasi. Kwa hivyo hiyo miti yao kama wangejaribu kuikatakata ama kuipunguza, na hakika ufisadi ungepungua na mambo mengi yangefanyika, na pesa ingefika mashinani na ingefika kwa vile vitengo inavyotakiwa. Napongeza sana mjadala huu, na napongeza pia mwenye ameleta mjadala huu, ameleta kwa nafasi inayofaa. Asante Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Dr. Lagat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to comment on...
Order, Senator Maura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me from these noisemakers around. But I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, so many of us have spoken differently, but I want to make a small contribution on this. Senator Ledama mentioned something that I had also wanted to mention concerning issues of investment by these particular athletes, issues to do with their social lives, and the rest, Mr. Speaker. I want to say that we must think as a country of coming up with a sports institute that will be able, Mr. Speaker, first to identify these particular talents at a very young levels. Remember, this Kipchoge Keino was identified as a very high level when he had matured. But while he was in primary, while he was in secondary school, this talent had not been discovered effectively. So I would like to say, if we can get a national sports institute, Mr. Speaker, it will be able, first of all, to fight cartels. In sports, there are so many cartels. Us, ourselves, we come from athletics regions. Before ones get to the camp to train, there are a lot of challenges for these particular young people to get into those particular places. They are actually being cheated, they are being frustrated, and so many other things. So I am suggesting that if we can get a sports institute, Mr. Speaker, it will be able to help us, first, to identify these talents at a very young age. Number two, train them on professionalism. Number three, it will be able to train them on investment so that they can use sports as an investment. Otherwise, they normally get culture shock. They get a lot of money, and yesterday they were not having. And then they engage themselves into terrible activities and end up suffering worse than even before they became athletes. So I would like to encourage that our government identify and come up with a sports institute that will do all those that I've mentioned, Mr. Speaker. I also want to change Senator Cheruiyot by condemning any mongers in our country. As we know right now that people are fighting down there where we come from in Bomet and Nakuru. So I want to just to say that we condemn that because the Senate is a peace-loving institution, and all of us should stand together to condemn that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Senator Jude Poreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise again to support this motion and to congratulate Eliud Kipchoge. And Mr. Speaker, there is no better place to celebrate them other than in this chamber, this very chamber and this town of Eldoret, where they come from, and Eldoret being termed the home of these champions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, then the concern is how much have we invested on our athletes, Mr. Speaker? What institutions, what academies do we have? Do we even have academies, sports academies that should be able to train, should be that is accessible to these people, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, what facilities do we have, Mr. Speaker? I always refer to, and I keep repeating and refer to the example we have just next door, the Republic of Rwanda. Mr. Speaker, in the Republic of Rwanda, the Minister of Sports is stationed and located in the main national stadium. The whole Department of Sports, they do not sit outside with the rest of the minister. The minister himself sits in the national stadium. The offices are there for him to be able to, or for her to be able to run sports. If you go to the regions, in the districts, they have district stadiums, and in those district stadiums, the departments of sports sit in the stadiums. And then they do business there. Their business is basically sports, Mr. Speaker. So I want to say that we need even to copy just simple things that are good examples even from our neighboring partner states, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on some time back, we had a delegation to the Commonwealth Games. And there was this celebration, and as people were coming in, and people were dressed in their national colors and good attires that reflect and show which countries they came from. And I remember we were so concerned, Mr. Speaker, and we had a discussion and a dinner with a delegation that was led by Paul Tegat himself. And we asked them, what happened? We did not even notice that Kenya is passing. What was the problem? They said we even had designed a sport gear that shows where we come from, that celebrates Kenya. But they told us because of the usual cartels, they were unable to showcase what Kenya should showcase, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have, and we met the youth tube, they call him the youth tube athlete, and we met him there. And I kept wondering, do we have to wait for our youths to go to YouTube for them to be able to access some training? Because you remember this YouTube athlete was saying that he learned how to throw because he had to learn through YouTube. How many other athletes do we have that can access YouTube, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we need to reach out. Reach out to the youths out there. A lot of them are unemployed. Reach out and fish out for talent. We do not do that. We wait until they are taken advantage of by the agencies, until they are exploited. Senator. The best we hear of Kenya is how officials can go out of the country with their families. Last time we saw them with oversized shirts and tracksuits that belong to the athletes, Mr. Speaker. We do not want to hear of Kenya in that manner. We should hear of Kenya in brighter colors, in patriotic colors, and we should be able to encourage this particular sport, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Engineer Argura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join the Senate Majority Leader in commending Eliud Kipchoge for breaking the world marathon record on 16th of September in Berlin, 2018. Mr. Speaker, as it has been said by the other members, Kenya is known internationally as a sporting nation. But the sad thing is all those athletes, right from independence, have all been struggling on their own. It's something which we could say it's organic. It's not organizational. We didn't contribute to it. It's them using their talents to earn a living. And as a country, over 50 years after independence, we are still asking ourselves what we can do to improve or to market this country through what we are known for. It's because as leaders, we have not been concentrating at all on what we can do to improve or to facilitate our youth in realizing their talents. That is why we are now talking of athletes who have represented this country, and after their active years are over, you don't even know where they are. Because as a country, we have not invested in them, and that is why I think the majority leader felt that we have to do something as a country. We have to develop the facilities, the stadia, we have to develop sports academies so that where we know there are talents, they can be tapped early. And that requires financial commitment. And that has been said, sadly, sport is one of the departments which receive the least amount of funding in our budget. That shows how much we care about it. Mr. Speaker, also, we have seen how it can be used. For example, one such athlete, Tekla Lorupe, has used sport in addressing issues of insecurity by bringing Morans from warring communities together to participate in sports. That way it shows it's a cohesion factor. We can use it that way. But unfortunately, we are so short-sighted. As leaders, we only get interested in where we can make money. As individuals, not where we can improve the welfare of these other Kenyans. That is why we need to invest in coming up with enabling environments for the sports sector. And we also need to take
conclude, Senator Argura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support, and I think we need to move a step further and make sure that we develop the infrastructure to assist the youth of this country to establish their talents.
Senator Mwinyi.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia hoja ya kumpongeza Eliud Kipchoge kwa kuvunja rekodi ya ulimwengu ya marathon. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo alilofanya Eliud Kipchoge ni jambo la ajabu sana katika wakati huu wetu, kwa sababu licha majaribio kadhaa aliweza kuyafanya, hakuvunjika moyo kwamba hakuweza kufaulu. Na tarehe 16 mwezi huu wa 9 alifaulu na kuvunja rekodi kwa zaidi ya dakika 1. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, wana michezo wengi wanajitahidi kibinafsi. Hakuna mchango wowote ambao unatolewa na serikali ama hata serikali za kaunti kuhakikisha kwamba wana michezo wale wanasaidika kwa njia mbalimbali. Kwa mfano, kwa sasa tukianza katika ukanda wa Pwani, zamani ukanda wa Pwani, yani kaunti ya Taita Taveta, Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, Lamu na Tana River, hakuna kiwanja chochote ambacho chaweza kuendesha michezo ya kimataifa, aidha ya mpira wa miguu, ama mbio, ama rugby, ama mpira wa magongo. Chochote kile hakiwezi kufanyika kwa sababu hatuna viwanja vya kisawasawa ambavyo vinaweza kusimamia michezo kama hiyo. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba sasa michezo na mambo ya vijana yamegatuliwa kwa serikali za ugatuzi. Kwa hivyo ni fursa nzuri kwa serikali za ugatuzi kulazimishwa kutenga kiwango fulani cha kuweza kuekeza katika viwanja vya michezo na mambo mengine ya michezo ili michezo iweze kuenuka katika kila kaunti. Mheshimiwa Spika, nilifurahi juzi wakati tulipokuwa tuko katika michezo ya kasa kule Kisii, nikimwona mchezaji wa zamani wa Shabana Henry Motego amechukuliwa kama afisa wa michezo katika serikali ya kaunti ya Kisii. Hiyo ni jambo zuri kwa sababu tunajaribu kutambua talanta ambazo wako nazo wana michezo wa zamani. Mheshimiwa Spika, michezo ni fedha hivi sasa, kwa sababu tukiangalia wana michezo wengi ambao wamefaulu katika mbio za tofauti hapa Eldoret na kwengineko ni watu ambao wamepata fedha nyingi na wanawekeza katika sehemu wanazotoka. Kwa hivyo ni lazima serikali za county zihakikishe kwamba zimetengeneza sehemu ambavyo vijana wataweza kufundishwa michezo na sehemu hizi ziwe ni za kuenua talanta za kila aina ya michezo. Isiwe ni mbio, isiwe ni mpira peke yake. Na mwisho, Mheshimiwa Spika, michezo inaweza kusaidia nchi kuleta uwiano. Hivi sasa kwa mfano Joe Kadenge akitembea katika barabara za Mombasa, kila mtu anajua kwamba huyu ni Joe Kadenge. Hawajali kwamba ni anatoka sehemu gani, lakini anakumbuka kwamba Joe Kadenge alikuwa mwanamchezo, alikuwa mpigaji mpira mzuri. Kwa hivyo michezo tunaweza kutumia katika nchi hii yetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuleta uwiano. Zile sehemu ambazo watu wanachapana bila ya sababu kila siku, inafaa michezo ipelekwe kule ili watu washindane kwa njia sawa sawa. Na mwisho, Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kumkumbusha Seneta Zawadi kwamba siku hizi hata kina dada wana matawi. Si wanaume peke yake ambao wana matawi, hata kina dada pia wana matawi. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Haya. Hata kina dada wana matawi. Senator for Nakuru, Senator Kihika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also rise to support this motion and congratulate Eliud Kipchoge for breaking the...
Order, Senator.
Protect me, Mr. Speaker.
From the leader of majority.
For breaking the marathon world record. And I mean, it was such an exciting event, even to watch it, that when we see more of this and we encourage more of our sportsmen to go ahead and get these sorts of records, it's really put our country on the map. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important that the government supports these athletes by having the facilities that they would need so that the other who are young and upcoming can also get to the level of Eliud Kipchoge. I'm sure we have very many of these, for example, in Kuresoi, in Nakuru County, and in other parts of the country, who would need these sorts of facilities to be able to bring them up to par. But beyond that, it also really helps bring the country together. I will say that even on my social media pages, whenever I have a post congratulating an athlete, those are the pages, those are the posts that have a lot of engagements, very, very positive. So that is one of the ways to bring the country together, to make people more patriotic, but we cannot achieve that unless we have the necessary resources set aside to make sure that we encourage the athletes, and for those who are upcoming to also make sure that there's an incentive for them to want to be winners. It's also a particularly fitting motion at this point, given that we are in UASIN GISHU County. We also this morning visited with some of my other fellow senator colleagues, Nandi County, where we were told that that's the source of champions. I hear there is source of champions, and then there is home of champions, and City of Champions. So really, this is just an exciting time for us. But Mr. Speaker, sir, before I sit down, because I do see that my time is almost up, I would like to take this opportunity to condemn in the strongest terms possible that I can muster the ongoing clashes that are in Narok County as well as in Nakuru County. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have some leaders who are inciting Kenyans. Kenyans are peaceful people. They have lived together for many years side by side. So to have leaders who are inciting and leading to violence and conflict between the communities, it is a leader should not do that. And since they are known, they should be arrested and they should face the full force of the law, because we cannot allow our country and specifically our counties to end up being war zones just because some leaders want to incite for their own personal interest. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I condemn that, and I pray and I ask and urge the communities involved to please come together for peace, stop the fighting, because we are all Kenyans and we have all lived together side by side, loving each other. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator Kihika. Senator Rose Nyamunga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to congratulate one of our very own
who has excelled in the World Marathon. I think this is not the first. In this area, we have had many firsts, and we have had great, talented people coming from this area in marathon and any other. But I want to add my voice to many colleagues who have congratulated, and Mr. Speaker, to let you know that Kenya as a whole is full of so many talented young people. The only problem that we have is, as a nation, we have never given an opportunity to our children. The type of education that we have always had is an education which is so much exam-based and also negative competition. We should, as a nation, develop talents, be able to identify talent and develop it at a very early age so that they benefit many children all over the nation. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that when we went to, just reiterate what my colleague has already said, when we went to Nandi County, we are told that that is the source of the champions, and this is the home. So that's why this place is more developed than Nandi, because all the money that is earned from all the money that has been earned by the champions, it is brought here and more development. So we want to decongest, because it took us so long to reach here because of traffic jam and all
Nyamunga, I hope you don't engage in economic incitement.
I'm not inciting, Mr. Speaker, but I'm only saying what I've seen with my 2 eyes. It is very important that we decongest. We want to decongest Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, and the same here. So if the source is there, let the source also stay there and develop the area. And Mr. Speaker, lastly, I would just like to also condemn the issue of the violence that we are experiencing in Narok. We know that after the handshake, Kenya has
Senator
been given...
Nyamunga, would you like to be informed by Senator...
I don't need the information, Mr. Speaker.
The information is declined.
No.
The information is declined. Order, Senator for Laikipia.
I was with her, so I can inform her.
Order. Information has been declined.
Thank you, Mr.
And when
Speaker.
it has been declined, it is final. You have 30 seconds, Senator.
Thank you,
Nyamunga.
Mr. Speaker. What I was saying is that with the handshake that we have had in the recent past has given Kenya an opportunity to move forward with a lot of harmony, that we don't want to hear another area is causing another problem. We had a conflict, a political conflict, which ended with the handshake. So we don't want another handshake. Another conflict or any other incitement coming from anybody. And that does not mean that I say that there was incitement by anybody. There was no incitement. There was a lot of animosity, which has now been corrected by from the day we had the handshake. So,
thank you.
Thank you. It is not yet read, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Kinyua. You have 3 minutes for your information.
Okay. Asante sana Bwana Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza kabisa nataka kumpongeza Eliud Kipchoge kwa kuweza kufanya vile alivyofanya kama mwanariadha. Akavunja rekodi ya dunia na kufanya vizuri sana, akawa ametoweka katika dunia nzima. Bwana Speaker, tafadhali nasikia katika lugha yangu, iko lugha inatumiwa hapa mbele, na kwa lugha yangu ya mama hiyo ni jambo ambalo singetenga kusema.
Order, Senator. Order. Can you consult in low tones? Senator Mazayo seems to be the leader of the team.
Asante Bwana Speaker kwa kuweza jambo lingine ambalo ningependa kusema ni ya kwamba lile ambalo limeonekana katika nchi yetu ya Kenya ni ya kwamba hata ijapokuwa hawa wanariadha wetu wanabombea sana katika zile mbio ambazo wanakimbia, unapata ya kwamba nyuga zetu ambazo ziko katika nchi ya Kenya ziko katika hali duni sana. Ukitembea kama Laikipia, hasa Nyahururu, mahali hawa wanariadha wote wanaenda kufanya mazoezi, unapata sehemu ile hakuna hata uga wowote ambao wangeweza kufanyia yale mazoezi yao, kwa sababu ukienda Nyahururu utapata Nyahururu ndiko kuna ile hewa safi, alafu kwa katika nyanda za juu ambazo zinahitajika sana kwa wakimbiaji, ni kama hapa Usingishu. Kwa hivyo ningeomba ya kwamba wakati ambapo tunajadili na hasa serikali inapoangalia mambo yake, ikifanya mpangilio, tusiwe tu tukiongea kuhusu tunafurahia wakati wanariadha wanafanya vizuri, lakini wakifika hapa nyumbani inakuwa sisi hatuangalii. Hata ukiangalia nimesikia viongozi wenzangu wakisema ya kwamba tutengeneze tuwe na vio ambavyo watakuwa akifunzwa vile watakavyokuwa kutumia hela zao. Hata wanasiasa wanapaswa waonyeshwe, kwa sababu wanasiasa wakifukuzwa na wananchi, unapata hawa wanakuwa katika ile shida. Jambo lingine ambalo ningependa kumwambia mwenzangu, nimesikia akisema ya kwamba hati hapa ndiko nyumbani kwa wakimbiaji, lakini huko ndiko wametoka. Lile ambalo nimeona ya kwamba ukitembea huko manyumbani mahali wametoka, wana mashamba makubwa, wana mifugo mizuri, pamoja na mashamba yao ni makubwa. Nilitaka kumuuliza ama ile nilipenda kumuarifu, nimwambia kwamba si majengo peke yake yanaonyesha mtu amejikimu kimaisha. Unaweza kuwa na shamba kubwa na ng'ombe wengi. Kwa hivyo si mambo ya nyumba peke yake. Asante sana bwana mwenyekiti.
Asante sana. Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. I know it has been a long day, but what starts well ends well. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, I could not miss the opportunity. Us be the agent of peace. As the Bible says, I think in Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, because they will be called sons of God. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to contribute to this motion that was brought by Majority Leader. I believe this is really a very important motion, Mr. Speaker, because I believe sports is one of the areas that we really need to nurture as a country and make sure that we have created employment for our youths. And we've seen, actually, having come to the home of champions, we have seen what sports has done for Rift Valley. And I think it is a high time that some of the counties that have not actually developed sports like Rift Valley should be able to emulate the same and make sure that we have sports carried out in most of our counties. Mr. Speaker, I do come from a pastoral community, but unfortunately we don't have stadiums. We don't have fields where our people can be able to practice sports and be able to progress well in sports. Mr. Speaker, today I went to Elgeyo Marakwet, and I was told most of the athletes go to Elgeyo Marakwet. There is a very important field there where everybody comes to train themselves. Unfortunately, Elgeyo Marakwet is very far for us. And I think there are very good recommendations that are made by several speakers, Mr. Speaker, in this debate, which I believe the leader of majority should be able to put them in action and run with it and ensure that we have amended the various legislations that are available and make recommendation to various ministries that are concerned with sports. Mr. Speaker, I think sports have been used severally in most of those counties of ours as peace building activity, where the communities are actually playing sports to make sure that they have established relationship and nurtured the peace among themselves and also living together in harmony. And I think this is a very important tool because we should start as early as possible, especially the counties where we have so many communities living together. Because we always have conflict issues of cattle rustling, we have issues of boundary disputes, and so many other. But I think if we seriously take sports, even as a curriculum, in our primary and secondary level, I think we will be able to build our youth in this country and make sure that we have used sports as one of the career that can be able to build our country and also known for sports in the world. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good. We are almost coming to an end on this motion. Senator Abshiro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also congratulate my fellow citizen and to congratulate our majority leader for bringing this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, we're very proud of Eliud, of course, for shattering the world record, but of course, we honor all the Kenyan athletes, and I'm happy we're using this record breaking to actually honor them and to ensure that we do something and to develop our sport. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak about women and sport, and especially women in athletics. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks or a few months ago, there were IAAF had proposed some rules that were supposed to do away with testosterone levels in women. I'm hoping that also as part of, I don't know if it's possible to add prayers onto motions, but if, as this Senate will request that those rules are punitive for women, women don't choose the level of testosterone in their bodies, and therefore they should not be discriminated against just because they have a certain level of biological advantage. And I don't even believe that's an advantage. It's just that it looks to me like one of the ways in which women may be locked out of athletics. Mr. Speaker, the other issue I'd like to mention is issue of women in sports leadership. Mr. Speaker, we've spoken of sports not doing well because of lack of leadership. We've spoken of sports perhaps not being resourced adequately, sports decisions not being taken perhaps that are not very conducive. I think the answer to that is to have enough women in sports leadership. If you look at the structure of our sports leadership, there's absence, loud absence of women in sports leadership. And we've talked about 2/3 gender concerns, both in the political space, but I think we need to look at 2/3 gender concerns in every aspect of leadership, including sports leadership. So for me, actually, I would request the majority leader, who has, of course, special interest and who has done great to bring this motion, to also include in the proposal to have 2/3 gender in sports leadership, and I think that way we will take care of that. Another thing, Mr. Speaker, that I have noticed, especially in athletics, is that use of banned substances is affecting women more. I don't know, is that they are duped into these things or not? Maybe that is a special attention that we as legislators need to pay, especially as women legislators, to check why is it affecting women more? And yet we know in terms of integrity, women are not wanting. So why is it that in sports, in athletics, that is the case? Mr. Speaker, another thing is I'll take this opportunity to perhaps invite
Your time
maybe...
is up. 30
give
seconds.
me 1 second, just
30,
one last one, please.
30 seconds, not one.
Okay. Isiolo County is going to hold a wheelchair race. And therefore, I'd like to invite perhaps senators and even the athletics fraternity to look at, these are ways in which we can use niche areas to develop sports that are not in the mainstream. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Mover to reply in no more than... sorry, there's Senator Mazayo. Senator Mazayo, I had not seen your interest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I want to congratulate Eliud Kipchoge for winning this marathon. One, it provides pride for all the Kenyans. I was the chairman of the Labour Committee in the last parliament. And I remember when we went to the Olympics, when you see a Kenyan running, you even want to imagine that you are the one who is running in that field. And even before the race finishes, assuming it's the last lap, that is the time you stand up now and be proud that you're a Kenyan, because there is a Kenyan who is winning that race. And no doubt, I think we want to praise Kipchoge for winning this marathon. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that after these people have brought glamour and pride to this country, these people are left out once their expiry period is over. And the government, I want to encourage, I want to insist, and I want to plead with the government that our sportsmen should not be left to suffer. Even here, the home of champions, or the source of champions, there are other athletes who brought honor and glory to this country. And today, they are languishing in poverty. I think we have read some of them. I don't know whether it's Ben Gipcho or the others. And these are the people who brought honor to this country. And I want to urge this government that at least there should be some element of those people who brought glory to this country to be honored and to be given those kind of retirement benefits or any kind of arrangement. That once somebody has brought gold to this country and he has retired, then something should be done for them so that we don't see them languishing in the streets as if they never brought glory to this country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Mover, you can reply. I request if you can do it in less than 5 minutes so that we can also attend to the other items on today's order paper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, I will use the shortest time possible. First, to thank honorable senators for supporting, Mr. Speaker, this very important motion. In fact, Mr. Speaker, from the eloquent presentations and the insights and the knowledge of these honorable senators, Mr. Speaker, I have come to the conclusion that I will pursue further, perusing the Hansard, Mr. Speaker, and based on the contributions of honorable senators, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that we are able and we are capable of coming up with actual legislative interventions on the areas that we have debated. And Mr. Speaker, I promise the Senate that I'm going to, working together with the help of the Office of the Clerk, to look at all the suggestions they gave and find a way, Mr. Speaker, of taking them further. In fact, by organizing, and I hope to organize a session between the Sports Ministry, bringing together the various sports associations, and the Senate, so that the issues we have said here, Mr. Speaker, can be taken further. If we don't just end up being just talk show, we become actually the real institution that looks at the issues that are affecting local people. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that support. Mr. Speaker, this space and time was not enough to mention great men and women, from Mr. Speaker, Billy Conchella, from Ben Chipcho, from all those athletes, Mr. Speaker, that have made this country great, including the late Mr. Speaker, the late Wanjiru. He was a great guy, Mr. Speaker. The late Bet, who died, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the other day in a road accident, among others, who have brought a great honor to this nation. Mr. Speaker, even in the Berlin Marathon, it wasn't just about Kipchoge alone. We had Gladys Cherono in the women's side. We had, Mr. Speaker, Amos Kipruto, Mr. Speaker, from this county, being number 2, Mr. Speaker, in the same Berlin Marathon. We had Wilson Kipsang, who comes from my county, Iten, Mr. Speaker, Mindililwo. A man who has won so many of these marathons, Mr. Speaker. This time round, he was hoping that he can challenge Kipchoge in breaking the world, the marathon, Mr. Speaker. And you never know. In the near future, he might do something special. Mr. Speaker, all these great men and women deserve, Mr. Speaker, our full attention. And in fact, can you imagine if these 3 counties, Elgeyo Marakwet, was in GISHU, and Nandi, the Speaker just spent time to engage these athletes from a perspective of investors, and then from there you move to marketing the counties and so forth. We are going to get amazing, amazing returns for our people, Mr. Speaker, because we have these people and they're capable and they're disciplined. People like Silas Kiplagat, who is my neighbor back home, and many others. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, thank you. And I want also to thank, Mr. Speaker, the Senate for continuously supporting initiatives that bring peace, such as this as sports. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we have one or two elements among us. Oh, Mr. Speaker, I have seen leaders, including those in this house, Mr. Speaker, one in this house, incite members of public, Mr. Speaker, to fight. Mr. Speaker, speak about communities and a particular community, Mr. Speaker, in a derogatory manner. I would really like to urge the senator of, Mr. Speaker, Narok, my friend Damo Lekina, that as senators...
Order, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The standing order number 96.4 does not allow you to impute a motive or otherwise discuss the conduct of a senator, a particular senator,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
until you bring a substantive motion.
The Speaker, there is no need to bring substantive motion. I actually saw Senator Pereno and Senator Naomi getting agitated. I'm sure they are, because women were being insulted. The Speaker, insulting women for giving birth and belonging to a particular community is just it's terrible. And as I said, I am not going to discuss the conduct of my friend. I'm just going to invite him that as leaders, let us sit in a corner. Let's discuss about the unity of this country. Let's pursue the interest of this nation with also, Mr. Speaker, the respect, Mr. Speaker, about the unity of this country. Because if we don't do so, we will be pretending here to say we are the Senate that is loved by the people. We are the Senate that is the embodiment of discipline and advice, Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Senator Malala?
Mr. Speaker, is Senator Murkomen in order to derail and start debating things that are not within the content of the motion that he moved? I think he's out of order and you need to rule on this. Thank you.
Leader of Majority, the rules on relevance apply.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and I am so relevant, Mr. Speaker. I've never been relevant than this. Because, Mr. Speaker, we are discussing sports, and the motion is very clear that athletics and sports has brought us together. Mr. Speaker, it is actually Senator Orengo who said here that in most cases it's we politicians who bring shame to the nation. Yet the athletes are doing so well to build a brand for this nation. People like Conchela, Mr. Speaker, from Narok, who, Mr. Speaker, when he won the 800 meters, Mr. Speaker, gave a lot of hope. It's the reason why David Rudisha came and broke that record, Mr. Speaker. It's because of the precedent that was set by great men. And Rudisha, by the way, Mr. Speaker, if you go to Iten, and you have visited Elgeyo Marakwet as much, Rudisha schooled in a very small school in past Iten, Mr. Speaker, a small school. Mr. Speaker, he lives in Iten, coached by Brother Colum, our former teacher at St. Patrick's High School. Mr. Speaker, he doesn't even live, and he lives in Eldoret and Iten. Trains in Eldoret, in Iten, lives in Eldoret. Mr. Speaker, yet he's someone who was born and brought up in Narok. Mr. Speaker, that is the spirit of sportsmanship that brings people together. And that's the things that I want us as a Senate to emphasize if we want to build a good relationship for this nation. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want also to thank the Speaker to use this opportunity, finding the relevance that you may find in your own wisdom, Mr. Speaker, to thank also honorable senators and the people of Kenya who prayed for our colleague, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., whom, Mr. Speaker, had a small issue, he choked when he was taking food. It's always good to make things transparent because there was a lot of rumor and peddling rumor around. He choked when they had gone to address the County Assembly of Nandi. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you the good news is that he was given first aid. I'll allow the senior to inform me immediately after this, Mr. Speaker, and I agree with
Order, senators, please conclude, Leader of Majority. We need to...
Mr. Speaker, can I allow the senior doctor to inform you, because the Speaker is the only one who went straight to...
I'm the one who should be asking you that
Sorry,
question.
Mr. Speaker. Yeah, okay, Mr. Speaker.
Would you want to be informed by Senator Ongeri?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ongeri.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the Leader of Majority in Senate. We went to Moi Refro Teaching Hospital, and they were out there, and in my usual professional manner, I went to theater. And he's out of danger. He's already been wheeled to his center, and I think the kind of rumor that are doing the rounds in the social media should stop. It is a simple, basic technical operation that was professionally done. And I take the pride that the people who did it were once my students. And I want to tell you that he's in safe hands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to say, as Senate, we should also take greater pride on the fact that he received first aid in a public hospital in Kapsabet and was treated, Mr. Speaker, in a public hospital called Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, where any ordinary citizens can get medical care, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the doctor, Dr. Arwasa, the CEO, the Speaker was able even to tell us that they have the latest equipment. They were exchanging technical terms with Professor Ongeri, the Speaker, about the latest equipment that they are able to do the procedure that they did while they were doing the endoscopy, Mr. Speaker. And I really want to say that as a country, this is the direction we should go, that we must continue building in our universal health care, and that we are very proud that our colleague was treated in public hospital to give confidence to the people of Kenya that this country is making great strides. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for allowing me to digress. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, and say and promise the House that all the issues you've raised on the sports fraternity will be taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader of Majority. I applied standing order number 1, which I could not apply on the other issue, because this is an issue concerning the health of one of us. Order, Senators. Order, Senators, pursuant to standing order number 79, I am supposed to determine whether a motion concerns counties or not before voting takes place. And I determine that this motion does not concern counties, and therefore the voting will be by way of ayes and nays. I now put the question, which is, cognizant that Eliud during the 2018 Berlin Marathon held on Saturday, 16 September 2018, aware that Kenya has earned international respect in athletics over the years courtesy of such hard work and stellar performance by our athletes in both on and off the field events, which has brought us together as a country and encouraged cohesion in line with our national anthem. Further aware that athletics has created significant economic opportunities and infrastructure in the Rift Valley, creating thousands of jobs for many would-be jobless youth, thus engaging them in a productive and meaningful manner for the purposes of nation building. Further aware that the youth are a critical component of the Big Four agenda by the government, and that development of athletics will lead to more productivity by a significant population of the youth who constitute a formidable part of the demographic structure of the country. Cognizant that more support from the government is needed to fight the doping menace that has bedeviled our athletes, and to encourage and motivate young and upcoming athletes to strive for excellence untainted by the vice, noting that performances by the sportsmen and women, by our sportsmen and women, are indeed commendable and deserve special recognition. The Senate now commends Mr. Eliud Kipchoge for his excellent performance in the marathon, and specifically for breaking the world marathon record, and urges the national government to A, set aside additional funds to improve sports facilities, B, establish a conducive environment in the country by giving incentives to investors in the sports sector, C, provide psychosocial support to active and former athletes, including a pension scheme, and D, create a fund to cushion athletes who are forced to early retirement due to illness, injury, and other circumstances. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of contrary opinion nay? The ayes have it. Next order, we go back to order number 8.
Order number 8, the Petroleum Bill, National Assembly Bills number 48 of 2017, second reading.
Who had the floor last time? It's a continuation of debate. Senator Fathia, you had 3 minutes left. The rule established yesterday was 5 minutes per speaker. I also understand you were interrupted in your 1 or 2 minutes, so I'll grant you 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll try and finish as fast as I can so that I even take less if I am able. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I had mentioned yesterday, people from the county of Turkana, which I happen to work in my life, have a lot of challenges in terms of poverty levels. And I again request the House not to throw away this bill, but amend it so that it is appropriate. In my mother tongue, there is a saying that goes, don't eat dead body because you're hungry. In that context, what I mean is that despite the fact that we know that this bill is needed, let me come to that. Despite the fact that we know that the bill has a lot of challenges, we need a proper bill. We need to amend it in such a way that it is better for all Kenyans, and let us not throw it away in that context. Mr. Speaker, sir, in clause 10, section G, upon recommendation of the advisory committee and authority, suspend, revoke, terminate petroleum agreement, recall security contained in a petroleum agreement on behalf of the national government and in accordance with this act. My comment in that is that unless it is stipulated, which a reference is not made in this clause, we need to know what that security entails, what is the value of that security, so that ambiguity in terms of that security that's described in this bill is cleared. Mr. Speaker, sir, in clause 12, where the list of committee to be established for National Upstream Petroleum Advisory Committee, my recommendation in this, in terms of amendment, is that we instead of everybody, 9 of them, out of which only 1 person is from the county, my recommendation is we have 3 people nominated by COG, so that because the petroleum is in counties, they can be accommodated in that, the decision making of that board. Mr. Speaker, sir, in section clause 13, subsection 2, where the cabinet secretary rejects any advice given under this section, the reason for rejection shall be communicated in writing to the within 14 days. However, it does not give us, if the decision that is communicated by the CS is not plausible to the committee members, what remedy or what action can they take in terms of also communicating back? So this comes back to what was being discussed yesterday, the cabinet secretary having absolute powers. Mr. Speaker, sir, in section 58, subsection 5, Parliament shall review percentage under this section within 10 years. I do not have a problem with Parliament reviewing this under 10 years, But I would wish we can include another a clause that protects the existing that is approved in this, so that if the parliament reviews the percentage to the communities, it can only improve. Mr. Speaker, sir, in clause 96, it says, again, coming back to the absolute powers of the cabinet secretary, we know that cabinet secretary does licensing of oil exploration and all that. But then again, clause 96, the same cabinet secretary who is at the other end of supply, the cabinet may undertake a whole or in part the provision of financing, procurement, storage, maintenance, management of petroleum strategic stocks. For me, I see, as a finance person, I see a loophole in that process. You are in this end, you are also in this end. Where is the transparency and governance in that process to ensure that the first level of transaction is independent from the next level of transaction?
Time is up. Senator.
5 minutes. Just give me 1 more minute, I add something. Just
Those will
one
be
something
2 minutes.
that is very...
Senator, you organize your thoughts and make sure you say the most important thing.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The other thing, I don't know whether it can be amended in this act or where can we put, but Kenya is trying to industrialize. We've seen the first stock of petroleum products being exported to be refined. Yet Kenya has a refinery in Mombasa, which probably needs repair, and we should have repaired so that it creates more job. And also, it is because we are trying to industrialize as one of the flagship projects for Jubilee, I think the government needs to consider that, especially if there is enough economic reasons why we should do that. And then the other thing is, I think we need to come into partnership with Uganda also to build a refinery in Kenya so that we save funds that are needed in this country to refine oil within East Africa. And that opportunity needs to be explored.
Thank you.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator, thank you. Senator Were.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the petroleum bill. And I went through this bill, and reading that bill, it continued to affirm the fact we have been stating here in the recent past on the importance of Senate to protect counties. This bill draws a lot of power to the CS. Every time you read through the bill is CS will appoint this, CS will be the one giving licenses, CS will regulate. The petroleum fund being set up, CS is the one who will determine the membership too. So there's a lot of power being drawn to the center and very little to the counties. So without this Senate, then our communities, our counties, and our people would be doomed. So I thank you that this bill has come to this House. There was public participation on this bill done by the Senate and other stakeholders. It's important that we include views that we picked from public participation and include them in this bill before it passes. Otherwise, what would be the use of having put public participation in the Constitution? There's also a certain expectation put on public participation. That expectation, we should be able to meet it by including some of the views, if not most, the views that we have picked from the public. This bill seems to focus only on Turkana as the place where we have petroleum. There are also other natural resources like gas that we also need to establish a law, even within this petroleum bill. There are other counties, for example, Baringo, that has also discovered oil. Are we going to set up another law that will be addressing Baringo, and therefore for all other counties that will discover oil? And because of this oil coming from Middle East down to Africa, we are going to continue getting this oil in all other counties. It's also important to note that 70% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid, so we'll continue to get oil
oil deposits in the country, and we should set up a law that is not just dealing with questions or dealing with issues that are in Turkana, as much as we want to use Turkana as an example, because that's where we have first discovered the oil. That also goes back to the issue we raised that we were talking about earlier, about Kenya Meat Commission, that Kenya being 70% ASAL, and therefore the capacity to exploit oil or to discover oil is high. It's also 70%, and therefore we practice livestock more. And therefore we need to continue setting up, for example, industries that respond to our environment. And we set up laws that continue to respond to our environment or the climate that we live in. So therefore, with that, I also want to support my colleagues who are saying that, for example, Uganda discovered oil some time back, but they have not been able to commercialize it. So I ask that we link up with other East African counties, set up a refinery here, being that we are the big brothers, so that even oil from the other countries can be refined here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, thank you, Senator Were. Senator Imana, Professor Imana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance to say something on this bill. Yesterday, I was involved in other issues in Turkana, so several people were asking me where I was yesterday, but here I am today. Now, I'm glad that you went through this bill, and you have found that there are some things that you have not liked, like the power of the PS. That is good. And anything else that you found that is not right in this bill can be amended. We cannot pass it when it has issues that we are not happy about. So with that, I like to say that amendment is the way to go. Amendment is the way to go because the people of Turkana are waiting for this bill. The bill that is going to be replaced by this is a cake and does not take into account issues that are important to Turkana. So I hope that instead of throwing it away, we're going to make amendments. Now, I've gone through the bill myself, and I saw that thing about the power of the PS. But it is the way that our government is structured. Most things are decided by the government, and there's not anything out there that is called perfect. There is always something that is wrong in everything. So this bill, however imperfect as it is, has some good points to it. For example, there is the point about community representation. Turkana are the kind of people that want to be asked or want to be included in whatever decision that you're going to make about oil that is found in their nation. So as a Turkana, I feel that Turkana people are not well represented in the issues of this oil. This is going to be an issue later, as you say. There'll be oil found in other places in Kenya. The people of those communities are going to require that they be represented in oil that is found in their localities. The same applies to Turkana. Turkana feels very unrepresented in the oil that is now available in Turkana. And I want you to take into account that in your amendments. Amend the fact that men Turkana people should be represented so they can get advantage of what is available in their locality. There is also the issue of revenue sharing. Revenue sharing is a good idea. How much money? Revenue sharing is a good idea because somebody mentioned here that Turkana has a lot of challenges. We've been left behind for many years, and now that this oil has been found, we'd like Turkana people to get advantage. We'd like Turkana people to kind of come up and come to the level of most other Kenyans. Now, that too requires you to look at it. while we decided 5, 20, and 75% for the government, I think it's something that you need to look at very seriously, because when oil is found in your own locality, are you going to be happy with that? Are you going to be happy with 5% for the community and 20% for the county? But Turkana being now an experiment stage, is going through this. It's gone through this decision that you're going to have 5 for the community and the county will have 20% while the government has 75%. But whatever amount of money that comes, we're going to use it diligently to bring the level, to reduce the level. Another important issue here. My time is up, and this thing keeps on knocking off. So because of that, can I have more? Can I have more time? The time that I've spoken has been wasted because this thing went off, on and off.
1 minute, please.
1 minute. Now, another important issue here is the idea of the environment. I'm asking my colleagues to look at this issue very well. There are complaints in Turkana about dumping by Talo, in which case, you see it went off again. In which case, another 1 minute, right? There are complaints in Turkana County about the dumping that is being done by Talo. Many people are complaining about animals dying, people getting sick. So is one other issue that I'm asking the Committee on Health to pay attention to, and also go out to Lokichara and see how those things are being done over there. I know that there's an international law that says that the waste from such oil drilling should be disposed of in a good way and not just be poured everywhere there because people are going to get sick. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chairman. Because this thing keeps on shutting off. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this time to contribute on this particular bill. Madam Speaker, Petroleum, Madam Speaker, protect me from the noise that is coming from my colleagues.
Honorable Senators, kindly be consulting in low tones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for protecting me. Madam Speaker, the Petroleum bill is a Madam Speaker, Petroleum bill is very important for this Senate as a House and a country as a whole. And it is very important and it's very good for us to recognize that and appreciate that the bill is in the House and to be discussed so that we can do the needful amendment on this bill that is supposed to be, or it's going to be, useful to Kenyans. Madam Speaker, laws and issues that have been discussed in this bill and are going to be discussed in this bill, it is very important that the issues be resolved before the bill is concluded or voted to. And why am I saying this? It's because this bill touches on land, and land belongs to the community, and the community is where conflicts, most of the conflicts are occurring from. And it is very important for us to look at it and internalize what is it that we are talking about in this bill. Having said that, we need to decentralize all the powers that are concentrated in this bill from the central government or from the central level, where the cabinet secretaries are mentioned in this bill, where the CS and all those managerial levels are holding those powers, to the common citizen who has the land in the community, who is able to utilize what is it that is in his community and in this land. Madam Speaker, it is not only oil in Turkana. There are so many minerals that we are going to discover, or to discover, yes, in our land. It is the highest time Kenyan Senate make appropriate resolution on this bill to cover and enable any other resource that is going to be discovered, so that both the community and the nation can benefit at length. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Dr. Milgo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I also rise to contribute to this bill. And on the onset, I used to say that this is a good bill because petroleum being a natural resource in those countries that have been found, that this petroleum has been found, it has gone a long way in actually improving the economy. However, we've got to have a critical look at this particular bill, and I wish to concur with my colleagues in terms of having to look at it close by close so that we can be able to amend so that it will not become a curse instead of becoming a blessing. Madam Speaker, looking at the management in terms of issues of upstream, midstream, and even downstream, it is indicated that in most of the cases, the cabinet secretary has a lot of powers. Maybe only using advisory committees. These advisory committees still are under the cabinet secretaries. That means actually the major power is under that particular secretary, meaning there is bound to be a lot of challenges when it comes to issues of management. It is my concern that if this is not amended, in future we shall have a problem when it comes to looking at issues of transparency. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I wish to support this bill, particularly under clause 58, where it is talking majorly about the environment. Our environment shall be managed because yesterday we sat here and we have received a lot of information and petition. Like from Nandi County, we got the issue on the coal mine. In other areas, we are getting issues on quarries that are actually affecting the environment. Madam Speaker, this particular bill has actually dealt very well on the issues of managing the environment, and I think with very little amendment, this bill is going to really assist us. In addition to that one, Madam Speaker, I've also noted that this bill has clauses that is looking at the human resource. Me, as in the Labor Committee, being a vice chair particularly, every now and then we are getting petitions from the industries on how employees are really mistreated, more particularly in terms of remuneration, in terms of work years, and even separation from the particular company. And at the end of it all, we do realize that any worker, after being separated from those particular organizations, they end up becoming ill and they cannot afford to access any treatment because of poor remuneration. Madam Speaker, I've seen under clause 69 again, this bill has provided for that is management of waste. And waste in this case is the one that has also affected the human as well as wildlife. And in any case, in this bill, if we amend a few sections, what it is that petroleum and any other natural resource can be, in this case, extracted without any challenges. Madam Speaker, another clause that attracted me in this particular bill is clause 58, that is talking about sharing of the revenue. Sharing of revenue between national, county, and local community. However, Madam Speaker, I think 25% to the local community is very little money. I think 20 to the county and 5 to the local community is a challenge. I think in Turkana recently, we saw a lot of conflicts where the people even blocked the trucks that were ferrying raw fuel because of the fact that they were not seeing any benefit that was coming to the community. And I think this one should be looked at critically, and in any case, this law to be amended, that the percentage that goes to the county should actually be increased. Madam Speaker, I think with those few points, I wish to really recommend the people who came up with this particular bill, because this bill will go a long way to actually help this country. It is unfortunate that the only issues that are being mentioned here are related to Turkana. It is likely that any time, even in my county, Bomet County, we might even discover oil for that matter. And recently, I heard that there was some cars discovered in my sideland. So for that matter, we want to address, this bill should also be able to address, as my colleague has stated, the issue of land. That is community land versus the individual land, so that at the end of it all, we don't have such conflicts that is going to actually bring conflicts between the community, the national government, and the investors. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Dulo. Senator Wako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important bill. And from the onset, I would want to say that I support the bill, but with amendments. As we have all observed, the bill does not cover the entire nation, and it is important for the bill to cover the entire nation and put into consideration any other area that may fall under this. Why I'm saying this is because currently there is a lot of discoveries going on, including even where I come from, the village I come from, Marsabit. In one of our areas, some few months ago or some years ago, we were told that they were able to discover some oil. And if the bill will cover every area and be relevant to even the future discoveries that can help all of us. Number two, we know very well, Madam Speaker, that, that petroleum is most abundant energy resource. And unfortunately, in some African countries, the citizens have suffered. But again, when you look into the entire world, there are many areas that have benefited from that, and especially the Arab world. They have really benefited, and every citizen has felt the good or has earned the benefit of the discovery of petroleum, and it has improved their life in one way or the other, improved the economy of even their country. So it is my prayer that when this happens, Kenya will not suffer, but then we will always count the blessing that God has given us. And I'm sure this honorable house will not support or approve anything that will have negative effect on the common citizen. What we want to support, why I'm standing and supporting this bill, is because I know it will safeguard the lives of the poor people on at the grassroots and improve their lives, because it is through the bills that we can be able to express what we want to have in future. Again, in this bill, I have not seen anything that touches on where we are coming from and where we are headed. It is important for us to touch on that also, so that it can give good guidance to the nation. Why I'm saying that, most of the time we have records, we have things in place, but we don't refer to the past records. And so it is important for us to also refer to that and see how best we can improve. The other thing again is the drilling of petroleum endangers the environment and the ecosystem. We have mentioned, and we all know that. So when we come up, or this bill can be improved so that the proper measures can be put in place. I would want to know how the communities living around there will be protected from the negative effect of the petrol. And then the other thing is transportation also has its own effect. It can spill over, and that can have its own risk and dangers. And it is our role to see how our environment can be protected and what we can do in order for us to make sure that we reduce the risk that goes with this. Provision on how, I would want to also know the provision on how the government can deal with the risk that can be caused by this entire thing. As I finish, Kenya Vision 2030 and the second medium plan 2013-2017 identifies energy as one of the infrastructure enabler for the expected transformation into middle-income country. Madam Speaker, it is the desire of every Kenyan to see how the bill can progressively lead the nation into that. Because if we don't plan well for the future, then Kenyans will suffer. Thank you, and I support.
Senator Kihika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support the bill, the Petroleum Bill 2017. And Madam Speaker, I do so as a committee member of the Standing Committee on Energy. And having listened to a lot of the discussions and the contributions by my colleague senators from yesterday through today, I'm convinced that maybe we may need to have a few amendments as we go along, but I'm also pleading with the senators that let us not throw the baby with the bathwater. I'm sure that we can make improvements on the bill from what the senators are maybe finding to be a bit unacceptable, if that's the word. Madam Speaker, this bill is offers a very comprehensive legal framework on the exploration, development, and production of petroleum in this country. We have the current framework that's quite outdated, and since it was in place, the country has discovered and actually explored oil, and specifically in Turkana County. I've heard a lot of my colleagues talk about the bill talking more or taking into account a lot about Turkana County. But I would like to sort of inform the House that the reason it focuses a lot on Turkana County is because it's the only county where oil has been successfully drilled in this country. It's not, the laws set out here are not specific to Turkana County, but will apply to other counties as oil and other gases and anything else is found, and other resources are found within the other counties, which is also happening, but at a very early stage at this point. Madam Speaker, the framework that sets out the local content and training, I think, is of great importance, and it will be very, very important to our country. I believe, actually, in the bill, there is a requirement that the contractors and subcontractors must use services and goods that are locally manufactured if they fit the specifications. I think that this is really, really important and cannot be overstated, given that one of the big 4 agendas is in manufacturing. I believe that this would also help strengthen our manufacturing, would help strengthen manufacturing, which would also bring employment to a lot of the youth in the country as well as many other people in the country. In addition to that, there is a requirement that there be employment of Kenyans as this is happening. This is really important. As a House and as Senate, we have talked a lot about what we've seen on, for example, the SGR, where a lot of the Chinese have brought in their workers for the most menial jobs instead of using the Kenyans. So with this bill, there will be a requirement that employment, a lot of the employment is reserved for Kenyans. In addition to that, there is a requirement for a training fund within the bill. And with this training fund, then Kenyans will be trained in upstream petroleum operations, which will go a long way towards making sure that the local content includes a lot of Kenyans in the employment, so that we do not have a sector that benefits the foreigners at the expense of our locals and of our Kenyans at large or in general. Madam Speaker, the other issue that has been quite contentious from the contributions of my colleagues has been on the sharing of the revenue to the national government for the counties, from the national government for the counties as well as the communities. In the bill, 20% would go to the communities and 5% would go, 20% would go to the counties and 5% would go to the local communities. Madam Speaker, I know this is a house whose purpose and one of the greatest jobs of this house is to make sure that we are defending and protecting the counties. And so I can understand when senators feel that this amount may not be sufficient. However, I would like to point out, not necessarily that we are limited to that, but it's also important that the President of the Republic of Kenya sat down with the leadership and the community, the Turkana community, and this was the agreement. That is the 20% to the counties and 5% to the local communities. And I believe, as a starting point, this is an amount that is sufficient at the beginning and then can be amended as maybe more production is done or more oil is discovered and successfully drilled. So I think members of the Senate, you should not, like I said, sorry, Madam Speaker, can I just have 1 more minute and I'll conclude? Oh, sure. Okay. There is also a framework on compliance with the environment, health and safety standards that are brought out and well spelled out in this law. And I believe that is extremely important because we've seen some areas where you've had extractions and maybe the land is left in a way that's dangerous for the people, or we've seen improper waste management disposal. So this law would go a long way towards making sure that there is compliance with these standards, as well as disaster management in the event of a tragedy or anything happening across the country or wherever this is happening. I therefore urge my colleagues that let us be sober, let us not scare away investors. As much as we must defend our counties and our local communities, let us also have the big picture in mind. But I am sure we are a reasonable house and we shall come up with acceptable amendments if that's what it takes. But do not throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Honorable Senators, I think that brings us to the end of the debate on that bill, and we now would like to ask the leader majority to...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have listened to...
To reply, sorry, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The time available, I don't know how long you want to take. Yeah, if you can, it's better.
You want to move it? We'll proceed to Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to move this, to reply to this bill. First, let me start. We are in the second reading, and this is something I keep emphasizing to the Senate. All the issues that have been raised, they are welcome. It's important. But we must vote and pass the bill in second reading. Otherwise, all the concerns you've raised will be useless if we do not pass the bill in the second reading. And I want to challenge senators to really interrogate this procedure of the standing orders. The old things we said here will only be good for the books. Because if you fail to pass the bill in second reading, it goes straight to mediation, meaning that it will only be decided by 4 people and we'll have to pass it. But if we pass it in the second reading to go to the committee stage, then we can accommodate the changes that all of us are trying to propose, that we want to change this section, want to change the other section. And that is a critical thing, and I hope and I wish most of the senators were able to listen to this one, that unless the bill is passed in the second reading, all that we have said will be beautiful things. But if it passes in the second reading, will all of us go to the committee, just the way we agreed to pass all the bills of the roads, the fiscal planning which we've passed, the bills that are related to the other issue. So I have no doubt in my mind, first of all, that this bill will pass in the second reading, because that's the only common sense that will be able to facilitate an interrogation of the bill at the committee stage. Number 2 is that there are things that it is good to express and converse and even wish. I have seen some people saying, oh, it should go to counties 40%, 50%. It's not possible. You know, I like just being frank. In fact, the national government did not want to go beyond 10%. And they will be so happy if we can return that section to negotiation, because then perhaps they will find a way of taking it back to the figures they were looking for. So we must also appreciate that we are not, we are Senate. We are not just speaking for purpose of, speaking, Madam Speaker, for the sake of going on record. Because we are speaking because, one, this bill makes the oil sector better managed than the existing legal framework. So again, there are some people who will be happy for this bill to fail ultimately, so that the confused legal regime that is existing at the moment can continue, yet there are issues that we are trying to resolve. So I don't think anyone should feel, because I was seeing my colleagues at some say, there is this feeling like if we will fail this bill, we will punish the majority side, or or somebody will learn from us. In fact, if that happens, Madam Speaker, and I'm just being frank and honest, if that happens, and it's important, and this is intricate because it is based on the procedures of standing order. If it happens, we fall back to zero. Now, what is our solution going forward? Any person who has issues should be able to draft and give it to the committee. Again, I want to tell us that the workings of the Senate committee stage is so detailed that if everybody was to bring the amendments independently, we would be confused in the process, because you remember everything goes into a division. And you remember when one person is bringing one amendment, the other, to lobby even, Madam Speaker, to get the 24 delegation for every amendment will become difficult. The neater way of going about it is to any person who has spoken in this floor of the House, who was not necessarily a member of the committee because they didn't have an opportunity to submit the concerns they have, is to prepare those amendments and take them to the committee, Madam Speaker, so that the committee now can process. Where we will have 2, 3, 4 cases where the committee is not adopting certain amendments, then we can have an opportunity now to say, so and so, you have your amendment. And I can tell you, and I want to speak frankly, because from benefit of experience, it is difficult to pass an amendment individually here. Because people will be asking, what is that saying? And to get 24 delegations, as you know, we know how we operate, unless we come back to Eldoret here, where we will definitely be getting 24 anytime. But if we go back to Nairobi, Madam Speaker, and that's why I love Senate Mashinani, there are always numbers in the House enough to change the Constitution. So if we go back to Nairobi and operate in the same way we are operating, we may find challenges. I tend to agree with people who are saying the law as it is puts a lot of powers in the office of the Cabinet Secretary insofar as decision-making on various issues. Those are things we can sit through the committee and tweak it a little bit so that we make it institutional. I also agree with those who are saying maybe we need to add one more representative from the counties so that we have the representation of the counties weighted vis-a-vis the national government institutions, so that, you know, Council of Governors at any given time can always nominate people. And we need even to put it there that the nomination of the person who is going to sit in that place must have consideration of counties that where oil production is being done or transported, or, you know, something that when we draft, it's not too confined. It's wide enough to allow more people to serve in the Council of Governors in that committee, but also not too constricted to deny people the opportunity, not also too wide to allow any person, any Tom, Dick, and Harry to sit in that very important. So, again, these are things we must be able to work on it, and because there is no one, not the chairman of the committee nor myself, would be happy for our Senate to just rubber stamp legislation, yet we have the brains to contribute to betterment of the country. We have no other country to call Murkomen's country or the majority's country or the minority country. This is our country. And today, you know, you can be in the majority and tomorrow you're in the minority. Madam Speaker, and that's why this house becomes a house of equity, house of, unite. We should be able to sit down and reasonably say, and I really agree, Madam Speaker, with everybody who has said that we need to look at the powers of the Cabinet Secretary vis-a-vis the authority and the representation of the authority vis-a-vis the county government. That is, a foregone conclusion that we will not agree. But there is one thing that we must all agree as a Senate. We need the law. Rule number one, we need the law. Because where we come from is worse than where we are going in terms of the law. And, of course, we don't want to say Bora Sharia. We must also say Sharia Bora, Madam Speaker. So we should not say it must be just law, but it must be good law, so that then the contributions we make become very valid in facilitating the way going forward. The last thing I want to say, Madam Speaker, is that our contributions to lawmaking, we have made significant changes to the legal regime by the eyes that the people of Kenya gave us, which are devolution eyes. And Senator Mazzayo, who was with us last term, and another senator who was with us. I mean, I didn't know that we were a minority. Some of us who were there before know that the struggle last term was to get the bills come to us. Yeah? And we always fought about bills being signed. Sometimes you just watch in the news that the president was signing a bill, and you ask yourself, doesn't this bill concern counties? And we know, and we can confess now here, that there are many laws out there that really, truly, if they were going to be challenged, they would be challenged for lacking constitutional status by virtue of bypassing either the Senate as a house or the Speaker of the Senate giving the concurrence whether or not it concerns counties. And so I think we are slowly winning that debate. Now the next debate is to ensure that once the bills come here, we don't get you. Because the other day, and sadly, my colleague in the National Assembly was saying, oh, you know, Senate is delaying bills, we should rush the bills. Madam Speaker, this House does not delay bills. In fact, I looked at all the bills, including Petroleum bill, the National Assembly had them October 2017. Madam Speaker, we are given after 7 months or 8 months by the National Assembly. And then they quickly ran to the press and start arguing that Senate is delaying bills, even before 2 months pass in the House. And you know, I have told the executive that I am not prepared to expedite bills for the sake of it. And in any case, even if I expedite, they will fail, because the Senate want to interrogate through their committees in the floor of the House, make sure that when they go home and tell people we stood for your interest, they know exactly that these are the things. And I say it in this House. Apart from, yes, we are not rubber stamps, as Senator Mazzayo is shouting, Madam Speaker, although out of order, but very important point. Madam Speaker, yeah, so that, Madam Speaker, I think I want to thank the Senator of Turkana, and I want to thank profusely. And he knows where they came from to ensure that the numbers of 20 and 5%, 25% go to counties. And being the pioneer county on matters oil, him and myself, Madam Speaker, have the greatest legitimacy in this House on the discussion. If it was about interest on the discussion on oil, we are the ones who have the greatest legitimacy to make a case on the numbers that go to our county. And if these numbers, which were negotiated by Turkana County, the leadership, and they had the privilege of being invited to one of the negotiations, which was difficult negotiations. Because these people can be very difficult, but difficult is good, because I studied negotiations. It's important to make sure that you put your issues at a position and, stick to them. And also you strike at the right time. Because that time, it was right, because the executive had interest to ensure that we go together to a certain direction. And Speaker, I am doubting if the negotiation was now whether they would have achieved the figures that we are talking about in the bill. So, it's good also to make hay while still shining, because elections were there and there were interests and so forth. And the Turkana County people, leaders, did a fantastic job in the negotiation of the figures that are going to come. And that's why I was telling my governor today, one of the things that I would like to happen is that the oil discovery in Kerio Valley, which already they are saying it might be better than Turkana, that it happens, Madam Speaker, in my county down here. So you can start talking to me, because, Madam Speaker, we will be one of the OPECs, Madam Speaker. Already Turkana is an OPEC. Yeah? So now I think we'll become shake. And when I say OPEC, Madam Speaker,
order, members.
When I say OPEC, Madam Speaker, I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, oil producing and exporting counties. Madam Speaker, it's called OPEC in the local terms. That we hope that we can be one of the oil producing and exporting counties. And I suspect Kisumu might be either Kisumu, Homa Bay, around Siaya, might have also very good deposits. And of course, the coastal line might have also very good deposits of oil. And so, if that happens, we are going to be able to bridge the resource gap that is in our counties. At the moment, I was surprised today, my governor was saying that as the years go, the recurrent expenditure is eating into development expenditure, so that he says, if things remain constant, by 2021, in Elgeyo Marakwet, there will be no money for development. Yeah? Which means it's also a challenge for us to continue pushing for more money to come to the counties. Madam Speaker, let me address this issue of division of revenue being amended for 9 billion to go to counties. Madam Speaker, with due respect to the National Assembly and the national government, unfortunately, there is no constitutional framework, there is no constitutional provision or the PFM Act provision which allows any House of Parliament to reverse division of revenue law. Because division of revenue law is not subject to supplementary budget. Supplementary budget is a conversation that happens either in the national government through National Assembly or county assemblies, counties through county assembly. So, unfortunately, if anybody brings to us an amendment to division of revenue law, we cannot even prosecute it because it's unconstitutional. We have no constitutional mechanism even to handle it. Because there is a reason to that. I was in the task force on devolved government. I have to check the clock, Madam Speaker, so that... Okay,
You still
2,
have
3
an-
minutes.
you
Yeah.
still have time.
Madam Speaker, I was in the task force on devolved government, and I was involved in the drafting of the PFM Act. There is a reason why division of revenue is done in April. Before now, you go for budget of June. Then June, you can... And I don't know, I need to call the Attorney General, how they ended up even imagining that you can do a supplementary to cut money that goes to counties. It's not possible. It's not possible because the pre-planning of the counties has already been done. So, I am glad that the supplementary budget never succeeded in the National Assembly, so that some of us can have time, because we didn't even know, we can render our legal advice, free legal advice, Madam Speaker. We don't charge anything. We do it out of good interest in the country, to say that we do not need to even have a conversation of the 9 billion because it's not possible. And even adding money to the counties, by the way, even if you wanted to add money to the division of revenue, it's not possible. So either way, it's not possible. The only money you can add to counties any time of the year is when you come up with conditional grant. You can wake up any time in the year and prepare a conditional grant to go to counties to perform particular responsibility, sometimes because there is drought, sometimes because there is any calamity or disaster. So it's important to be able to deal with emergency issues. So we are the Senate. We are the Senate. No one should get worried about what we need to do with this law. What we just need to do is to prepare ourselves and say, when my office, working together with the chair here, will call you for breakfast like we called you for the other bills, we all prepare ourselves to come with the various amendments, harmonize them, take them to the committee, make sure that the committee prosecute them in the manner we'll have agreed, so that then it doesn't become untidy here when we are dealing with this very important bill. Madam Speaker, I believe that with the explanation I've given about passing second reading, we should be able to put it for division in the next period, Madam Speaker, and when it comes for that division, people know that even if we pass it second reading, it does not mean we've passed the bill. It's to enable us to amend it. Otherwise, as I said and I emphasize, if we don't pass in second reading, then it goes straight to mediation, meaning that our interventions will never be seen. Madam Speaker, thank you for that, and I beg to move and request you, pursuant to Standing Order 61.3, I request that you defer the putting of the question to a later date. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It is granted. It will be put, the question will be put at a later date. It is listed. Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m. Time to interrupt the business of the Senate. The House therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 27 September 2018 at 2:30 p.m.